so annoying. You have to keep learning to use new crap that doesn't actually do anything better than the old crap, which is incompatible with the new crap. So also that you can have blogs and watch fake teenagers and Real Housewives, and it's all happening too fast. And I'm tired. I'm just sick and tired of it all.
It's okay. You don't have to do the podcast. That's one of my least favorite parts of the movie.
Really?
Yeah. Anytime the movie's about like blogs, her complaining about blogs, I'm like, all right.
Because you're Juno core. You're honest to blogs.
I like, no, it's not that I like blogs, although I have no beef with blogs. No, it's just the only time where I'm like, oh, it's 2012. Or it's the time when I'm most like, oh, it's 2012.
Sure.
Well, because like, I'm like, oh, little did she know what modern horrors awaited. Like all the things she's complaining about, I'm like, oh no, those things were pretty good.
This movie is a weird period piece now.
Yeah.
It is carbon dated very much to the exact moment it was made, and was even a script that she wrote in 2005.
But the most horrifying thing wasn't the Situation's book launch party. That didn't get you?
Oh, I forgot about that. Didn't clock that one. Yeah. Well,
you seem in an irritated mood. Did you struggle with this movie?
Ben turned off the AC. It completely shifted my vibe.
It is insane.
I'm not joking.
Because
immediately,
I really fucking.
You were in a good mood, and now you are hostile. Now you're ready to rant about Juilliard.
It's so vital to me. It really is. I can't deny it.
We're putting it back on.
Ben, we cannot do this for 2 hours. This is not an option.
I love air conditioning so much.
And when I say this, I'm gesturing to the
it's one of those things where like
red anger lines.
Well, and you know what? I'm trying to fit him into every episode, so
President Roll.
I'm a little rolky.
He was
this Sims had a moodlet right now.
He was in a completely fine mood, and then within 30 seconds he was on the brink of rolking.
I mean,
what if when Harrison Ford Thunderbolt Ross was getting mad, right? You know, in that movie where you might notice a scene or two of him going like, right? You know?
But then he takes his anti-roke
then he's like, pills. Instead, he was like, turn the thermostat down. And they're like, yes, President. And he's like, okay.
I can't record my podcast unless there's AC on.
Sweaty. And then finally, the leader is like, and like turns the AC off or turns the heat up.
Oh, the leader just fucking writes him a new prescription. That's all his plan is.
The worst thing about that movie is the leader.
Caroline?
Here I thought that the most relevant film for me to see this week for this episode would be Sinners, but no, apparently I needed to see Thunderbolts.
Have you seen Sinners?
I saw it yesterday for this.
Okay.
And then
to be part of America's favorite
international discourse.
Yes, exactly. But I was like, oh, vampire film. I should see the vampire film before we talk about the vampire film. And then I saw it and it was kind of a mistake because it fucking ripped. And then it was all I could think about.
Yeah,
so then I had to watch Vamps again. I'd already watched it. Yeah, and then I watched it again this morning. To be clear, I like Vamps a lot, but they are very different. And the moods were
I want to say that.
Wild mood swings.
My whole thing with Vamps, and I'm sure we're about to discuss this.
I think you're about to, right, the headline here.
It would be funny if my whole thing with Vamps is, I just think Red Hulk, is...
Women shouldn't talk this much.
Is the first, what's a 90-minute movie? The first half hour, I'm like, right, the vampires are in the modern world and they have a BlackBerry or whatever. And then after about half an hour,
the T-Mobile Sidekick is much cooler than a BlackBerry. Let's get it straight.
There was a moment in my life I thought about getting a Sidekick. I think before I was like, I'm just gonna get an iPhone.
That moment was Gossip Girl. Gossip Girl was that moment.
Gossip Girl had it.
Blair Waldorf had a sidekick.
Gilmore Girls has a sidekick episode, which is one of the most naked. Like T-Mobile has paid for one episode of your show.
Gilmore Girls would not make me want to get a sidekick.
Did you have a Nokia Engage? Did you ever engage?
I never engaged as much as the idea of my telephone calls and my games in one beautiful, perfect, user-friendly package.
Those two things won't clash at all. You want me to do committed long-form gaming on a thing that's also going to keep dinging?
No, after a little while, I was like, I think I'm kind of into these characters. I think I'm a little sold on this movie, to my mild surprise.
I think the first 30 minutes, you're just like, yeah, okay, I get it. This is like kind of clever, but whatever. And then I think the remaining hour of the movie is kind of impressively well plotted. I think suddenly you're like, fuck, this thing actually has a good narrative. And the characters are all
cast.
like,
great cast as
yes,
always.
No money.
That is what I thought you were going to say. The real headline of this movie is you watch it and you're like, it is impressive that she made it as good as she did, considering that it's one of those films where you can feel the lack of time. You can feel every single background like disappearing 2 inches out of frame. That is like one of the clearest signs for me of low budget filmmaking.
Move the camera.
Where you're like, if you move it an inch, this entire environment's gonna fall apart.
Yeah, like that stuff bothered me more than actually the special effects being janky. That's fine. I think that worked.
She is, but even then, I'm like, she is so close to figuring out how to execute the special effects on like an early Tim Burton level, where it's like, oh, the jankiness is part of the charm. It's stylized in a comedic way. And yet it feels like she's still 5% short of the budget to being able to execute that properly. Like everything's just a little under what it should be in a way that makes this movie very bittersweet to watch. Because you're just like, God, if they could have just given her like 20% more to work with, time, money, what have you, you're like, this would have been, if not received properly as like a commercial comeback film, it would be a movie our series could end on that would feel a lot more triumphant.
Bittersweet is definitely, I feel like the word especially, we'll get to it, the end is so bittersweet. I cried both times I watched this film this week. It's fine.
Got a little choked.
The ending is very, very emotionally affecting and like beautifully built to and earned. And yet, in that final second, you're like, God damn it, fuck, this effect sucks. This emotional moment relies on...
I mean, I grew up on Buffy and I've seen worse. Like, you know, so that it didn't bother me as much as it should have. And also, I was thinking about it and not to come in here and be like, here's the TV critic ready to relate it to television.
Here we go.
If she had been 3 years later with this, this would have been a Netflix show.
I kept thinking...
And I don't want to say that, you know, not derogatory. No. I mean, like, it could have been. The world is defined. The characters are good.
This movie kind of got made at the exact wrong moment.
Yeah, and like, what if this is the movie she gets how much did this movie cost? I guess we don't know. It might be in the dossier, but like, what if she got the $20 to $30 million she got for her last movie for this movie?
Yes.
Right? Just like more than my guess is less than $10 million she got for this movie? I don't know.
The quote in the dossier is 10.
Yes. Right. Yes. The quote in the dossier is 10.
Yes. It feels like this movie should cost 20. You're like...
Or just, somewhere. Right.
Even 20 15 plus would have made a difference.
Well, anything would make a difference.
Anything would make a difference. It feels like if she had waited 2 years, Amazon either would have given her $30 million to make it as a movie when they were in their sort of Ted Hope-led, we're bringing back the Forgotten Auteurs and giving them blank checks phase. Or Netflix would have done it as a series. And either way, she would have had the support she needed. It would have been depressing that that's how it got made. But like this movie is in a crux point of like the high concept, larger budget studio comedy has kind of died. And things have not shifted over to streaming yet.
Yeah. I mean, when I was watching it again this morning, I'd watched it alone the first time. The second time my roommate was around and for some of the effects, especially towards the end, I was like, there's something so specific this reminds me of or something that it's trying to be. And she was like, oh, it's Death Becomes Her. And I was like, fuck, that's it. Like, it's close. It's almost that. But those effects are practical. They're different. They had more money. But there is such, you know, we'll get into all
that was
the vampire things I love. But Death Becomes Her is essentially a vampire movie.
Here's the whole thing with the end gauge. The thing they fucked up, and this is what I forgot about this.
Thank God we're circling back to this.
And Ben, just to, when you see this, you think high-end video gaming, right? When you see that device.
My heart starts fluttering. I'm so excited.
Can I see this?
Oh, do you not know the end gauge?
I don't.
I figured you were just au courant with the end gauge.
No. I've never seen that in my life.
It was just like, we are going to, at
make
the same
our own
time,
Game Boy.
Right. And they were like, we will make the world's coolest cell phone and the Game Boy killer. They thought they were going to like dominate two industries simultaneously.
I feel like where the buttons are on that stresses me out.
There's a lot of stressful things about it. Here's the most stressful. To change cartridges for your games, you had to open the phone and take out the whole battery.
Oh, no.
Because they forgot, like, like the cartridges go behind the battery.
They were sort of using like SIM card logic of like, well, you don't change that very often.
It was like which was one of the most classic examples of like,
What year was that?
2003.
Wow, okay.
That late. It was a competitor to the Game Boy.
I was going to say, when was the Game Boy? I'm like, that's not replacing the Game Boy.
But the Advance. which had a similar was going wide mode.
Oh, I
for
see.
The
I never
first
had
time.
the advanced.
Right.
Yeah.
But again, when you look at this screen, does that screen say wide to you? Doesn't say wide
It's
to
like
me.
skinny, actually.
No, the screen.
The skinny little screen.
It's a skinny screen.
It has the screen of like an original Game Boy that looks like a postage stamp in
maybe
a very
even
wide
smaller
handheld. Can you show Caroline a photo of the Game Boy Advance for comparison?
Yeah, I'm sure you know the Game Boy
'Cause not only
Advance,
is the
See, you've
Caroline.
now said this twice, and
The
I've been
dimensions
unfamiliar both times. So
of the screen are better, and also you will see there is a cleanness.
Well, it's one of those things
Oh,
where you're
yes,
like, oh,
okay.
a gaming company made
Right.
that. Like Nintendo, actually.
It has,
you
like,
know.
Yeah.
3
Okay.
buttons
No, I have seen
and
that.
a place to put
I
games.
did not have it, but
and a larger screen.
Yeah, although the Game Boy Advance had its own problems in that it was not backlit.
It was dark as hell.
Because they wanted to save battery power, and they
Yes.
realized that was just sort of not going to work anymore.
Right. You had to get the accessory. I remember I had a little light.
You snap it on. Yeah.
There was like third-party companies would make little like book lights that would go into the port you would use for like linked gameplay.
Yeah, I believe you're correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh. See, I just feel like my hands wouldn't go that way. It's not natural. The Game Boy, did you ever have those games like when you were really little and your parents were trying to keep you occupied at a restaurant?
Tiger
or like you press they look like
LCD games.
They look not electronic. They're just like they look like fish tanks.
Yes, with the
And you press the button and
Oh,
then you're
yeah,
trying to get the
yes.
fish into the
Yeah,
thing.
all
So I
the
feel like
t-
my thumbs were already prepped for that motion. I feel like the
Sure.
Game Boy Prime made
Yeah.
sense to me in that
Yeah.
way.
But
was
do you
a
remember
gateway
the
drug to the
Tiger
Game Boy.
LCD games that were just sort of like
there's like little, the whole screen was just bits that could light up essentially with pixels, like
Right.
Battletoads or whatever.
Give that a Google while I introduce the podcast. I want Caroline to see this as well.
Yes.
This is important.
Battletoads.
This is important to talk about.
Battletoads was
playing
like
Snake on my
someone being
Nokia.
like, what if
Yeah.
I ripped off Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Okay, so
no
David,
one checked me on
Open
that
one tab that's Tiger Electronics LCD game and another tab that's Battletoads so we can write. This is Blank Check with Griffin and David. I'm Griffin.
I'm David.
It's a podcast about filmographies. David's fast again. Thank God we turned the AC on. Directors who have massive success early on in their careers and are given a series of blank checks to make whatever crazy passion projects they want. And sometimes those checks clear and sometimes they bounce. Baby, this has been a mini-series on the films of Amy Heckerling.
It has.
We are sadly now discussing
We're
her
pushing
final
her off.
film to date,
For now.
2012's Vamps.
I suppose she could make another one. She's how old? 70 years old. It's not impossible.
She can make another one.
movie.
She speaks of wanting to make more movies. But yes, and these final 2 films are very much anti-blank checks. They are movies where you're feeling the tension of the checks being pulled back.
Someone write her a check.
Right. And unlike I Could Never Be Your Woman, where you're like, this movie is stuck in a perpetual fit of mania.
A little compromised. Yeah, an odd
Right.
one.
I'm glad I watched it earlier this week, but it
You-
did make me feel
you did watch
unhinged.
it.
Yeah. This
It's
has,
a little like you feel a little nauseous. It's a little like motion sick.
This has the
Yeah.
bittersweet thing where you watch it and you're like, the fuck, this should be one of her masterpieces. You can kind of see it pretty clearly.
Introduce
Yeah.
our guest.
Our guest today, who has done several power moves that we're going to get into since entering the studio, is the great Caroline Framke. First time in far too long.
It needs to be said.
6 years, baby.
Caroline, here is
Oh.
an LCD game.
Do you remember these?
I do.
And
Okay.
it would
And
just
did you
sort
ever
of
have these
flicker
guys?
like...
yeah.
I clearly did not know
know?
the technical
Yeah.
names of any of these.
It was like a still image that basically you could move
Little-
left or right.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, little bits
Right.
of it would light up depending on where you wanted the
Yeah,
guy
yeah.
to be.
It was
to, like,
kind
do
of
a
the
punch.
electronic version of the water ring game, and it was that primitive.
Do you remember the Battletoads? Because I feel like the Battletoads were pretty Ben coded.
I mean, that's a really good game.
Yes, it's very hard.
It is.
Incredibly hard.
Are they toads that battle?
Yeah.
It's truly just
Oh.
them ripping off.
They're
turtles.
cool guys. They have
Yeah, yeah.
sunglasses. Their names are Rash, Zit.
Right. I think we've talked about this before because I remember us going through their gross names. I'll look them up. Their names, of course, are. Come on now. They have to defeat the Dark Queen. We know that.
Pigs. I feel like they fight pigs.
Rash, Zitz with a Z,
Mhm.
2 Z's, and Pimple.
Yeah, there we go. They're
Mhm.
gross.
Why are
Sure.
they bodily?
Because like that was cool,
Yeah.
you know? It was like,
where's
bleh.
Burp? Yeah.
Right. Boys like gross things. They like
Gackins.
mutated animals
Yeah.
that are absorbing the vibes of other cultures.
I think they fought pigs. Are pigs the natural enemy of frogs?
I know people go to pigs a lot, right? Like Minecraft and Angry Birds both go, we got to take down the pigs.
Pigs who
Although,
are, I think,
well,
widely considered to be
Minecraft-
quite nice and
Yeah,
smart.
and smart. And
I
very
would
smart.
say the Minecraft movie using the piglins is actually a swerve. Like those are not the traditional Minecraft villains. They were introduced a little later.
Pause for 1 second because Ruda has called me twice.
Oh boy. What's up with Ruda?
fucking dinner rescheduled. It was just she was doing with an urgency that is not her usual behavior unless there's a health problem.
No, twice in a row.
Griffin's grandmother is so old that any phone call, I think, understandably for Griffin is sort of like, okay, what's
my grandma
what's
called
this one
once,
going to be?
like,
right.
Yes. We can keep that in now.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
She is a sort of background character on the show.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anyway, big announcement, Sclusy. I will be getting dinner with her sometime
Whoa.
next week. Well, it's now in flux. There was a Monday plan that I've now kicked to post-record.
Where does she like to go? And of course, you don't have to tell me or we can beep it out. But like, does she have a spot?
Yeah, she lives on the Upper East Side.
Yes.
And she is of an advanced age.
Yes.
And her favorite
she's
places
not exactly
to go are
about to go to
places that
Bushwick
are
or whatever.
less than a block and a half away.
Right.
Of which there are a couple.
Right. I wish I had a place. I mean, I do obviously have restaurants I go to or whatever.
The diner you were just talking about. That feels like your place.
No, but imagine the level of like...
If the diner were downstairs.
Well, or more like I walk in and like, David, your table's ready,
you want
right?
like a Cheers kind of like, hey!
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, we were just talking...
The only place I have that is my local bagel place where they do know my name.
I have that with an Italian restaurant in Parksville.
I know
that
you
I've told
do,
you
and it's
about.
a lovely,
I talk about it all the time because it truly took a lot of work and a lot of money to get there.
I'm not going to name it but it's a restaurant we were just talking about where they do know my order now.
That's pretty cool.
See, that's nice.
And I'm not going to name it because it's a bit of a hot spot, and it is one of the places where I get recognized by Blankies most consistently.
Dave & Buster's.
Correct. There we go. They know my order.
And your order is what, like Atomic Wings, nuclear level?
Yeah. And
I went
a
to Dave &
card with
Buster's?
8,000 credits.
Caroline and I went to Dave & Buster's. I think I told you that.
You and Caroline have been doing a
because
lot of very griff-coded activities.
Right, we've been
together.
13-year-olds together.
You've been eating like fucking
really
chicken fingers and playing video games and shit.
We did not get chicken. No, we didn't, but we should have. But
we went to D&B because you can tell the story. I mean, I don't
yeah, we got lunch. We got a hot dog. You had a weird amount of time before. You had kind of stacked a bunch of stuff because now you're like out in the world more. We're very excited. You know, the twins are sleep training or like...
They're sleep trained.
They're sleep trained. Oh, they're sleep trained now. That was not the case before. But he was out in the world. He was like, I'm stacking like 5 things.
They're getting a little lazy now. They got to get their asses out of bed and
They are
start
trained
working.
to sleep. So we had like an extra hour and a half before we had to get to a movie. You had a weird window.
Weird gap.
And he just goes, we were talking, he's like, I just wish it was Hard Eyes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's how Hard Eyes with Andrew.
Yeah, it was Hard Eyes.
Josh Rubin, past and future guest.
Absolutely. Great movie I really enjoyed.
Yeah. And so he was like, I just wish there were like an arcade or something. I was like, David, there's a Dave & Buster's.
Well, but that is the weird thing that I expressed that thought. A thought I had not thought was in that brain.
Yeah.
And then that you were like, well,
we could.
There is one.
And I'd never been. You'd never been.
No. And we wandered in there, and I would say that the midday Dave & Buster's wasn't really ready to help us.
No.
It's not like we walked in there and someone was like, and here's where you get your card, and here's how everything works. We kind of had to trial and error.
That's what I like about Dave & Buster's is you have to take care of your own ass there.
See, we did not know that. We walked in, I was like, there is no one here. There were maybe 3 groups of 2 children who were...
This is what makes D&B different than Chuck E. Cheese, though. They're not going to hold your fucking hand. This place isn't for babies.
We wandered around for an embarrassingly long time trying to find anyone or where do we get the card? Do we download the app? Whatever. And then we look up and there's like a giant fucking sign.
Here.
Start here.
But
also there
very
are 8,000 giant flashing signs.
Yeah, there's a lot of flashing things there.
It's hard to know which
Pizza Planet in a way that I enjoyed, but it was overwhelming.
No, the thing we
even
did,
though there was no one there.
The only thing we did that I regret, no one was there.
No one was there.
Is that I was like, we both were kind of like, well, we should play one of the gun games.
The only thing that you regret was leaving. Was not moving
First of all, I wish I were still there. Still be there.
And we're like, we're looking at your House of the Deads, and you're like, oh God, it's all so intense. And then so there was a Tomb Raider one, and I was like, okay, Tomb Raider's kind of slightly more. And we start playing it. And then they're like, you're being attacked by wolves. Kill the wolves.
The wolves.
And so it's just Caroline's a dog owner. We're shooting so many dogs, essentially.
Yeah.
And I'm
just like
Caroline, kill them.
I was like, why? No. Like truly almost crying. I'm like, I'm an insane dog owner.
You're
I tattooed
crying
my
right
dog.
now and
She's
talking
I
about
am.
it.
It was
You were
very
overwhelmed
upsetting.
by it. It was also overwhelming just because they were trying to get us.
They were jumping
It does
at the
put you
screen.
right on a swivel, those
I can't, like,
games.
that was never, I didn't go to many arcades. We talked about how we went to arcades as a teen. I didn't really do that. And definitely if I did, my game was not shooting. I feel like it was, I smoked him on basketball, I'll say that much. And Sims is solidly taller than me, so let us all.
This is cool. This is cool, and I like this, and this is good lore.
It was a good time. And then we have gone bowling since. Because we were like, okay, casting around for what are other things I did before I could drink.
Yeah.
Like teen activities.
Yeah,
you
so
started
it's like
an
that sort of
action figure
stuff
collection together and didn't invite me.
What is there a third Is there a third thing in the Holy Trinity?
Well, for me, and I feel like Ben will understand, as a Jersey, well, I did actually get my ear pierced like a month ago.
Congrats.
Randomly after I got a great haircut, and I was like, I think I'm fucking gonna live forever. Should I
Girl
pierce
2.0
my ear?
era.
Oh my God.
You were feeling vamped up.
I was feeling vamped up. I did not think it through, I'll tell you that much. And I got like the upper thing, and then they were like, you're gonna need a sleep pillow. And I was like, what? I'm gonna need a pillow? I did not get the pillow. It's like a donut. If you look up like piercing pillow.
I get it. To stop it.
There are some weird piercing pillows. It looks like other stuff. But I sleep on my back, so it's not that big an issue. But it was like I have to think about things in a way I was not anticipating. But yeah, I did get my ears pierced. I'll get the other one pierced if you want to do that. But I do feel like my holy trinity in terms of teen activities, it would either be a mall or a diner because I grew up in Jersey.
Hell yeah.
A diner. Well, and we've been to many a diner.
Well, not the late night diner. I didn't go to breakfast at diners. I did breakfast at night. What else is open?
That's very teen. We got to end up at Denny's or whatever because we can't go to a bar. Right.
The one like 24-hour place in my town, I don't think the diner was 24 hours in my immediate town, was a 24-hour combination Baskin Robbins Dunkin' Donuts. So you can stay up, eat some ice cream, feel sick.
Where would you go, Ben?
If Caroline successfully convinces David to get an ear piercing and then go to a 24-hour chain restaurant afterwards, feels like he's then stepping in on your territory of shit he should do with you.
A little bit.
Wow, I'm really taking over. I'm just encroaching the whole thing. That wasn't even one of my power moves.
You're not doing anything wrong. The problem is if Ben or I suggested these activities, what are you guys talking about? You're insane. I'd never do that.
A lot of people say a lot of things about me. That's all I'll say. But Fran and I were briefly going to get our nipples pierced for the Dragon Tattoo episode.
Of course.
We were like, we're going to go full Lisbeth.
Right.
But then we, whatever. We didn't get our act together. Like that was going to be complicated.
That wasn't number one on the priority list.
Would have been pretty funny.
Maybe you wouldn't want the AC as much if you had two fucking metal studs in your chest.
I think I'd wanted more. What were you going to say?
Well, to answer your question, what did I do?
Your diner. Or, sure. What was your,
I mean, pretty much anywhere where you could loiter in the middle of the night.
You loiter?
Yeah.
Teenage Ben?
Yep.
Loitering?
Yep.
Prime loiter. Yeah.
Reading a big leather-bound book?
Public parks, playgrounds?
Cozy corner?
Playgrounds, but even just gas station parking lots.
Oh, sure.
Because you could go to the, go to the convenience store. Those are open 24 hours. We had a 24-hour diner near my town where I grew up.
Called
we would go TikTok.
Oh, classic.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yep.
Oh, I see it here.
I feel like, in keeping with this episode, I feel like as I have aged, I am looking back at like, what did I like to do before my default was going out to a restaurant or going to a bar? Like, are there other activities? I'm sure there are, And I feel like as a teen, you have to find those other things.
Right.
We've done these things.
Stage.
You and I have done these teen things in like the smack middle of the day.
Yeah.
Because that's when
it's kind of when I'm
fewer
doing
people
stuff.
there, and that's when you're doing stuff. But I do feel like, doing that stuff later at night.
But I would
as a teen, that's where you could go.
I would often do it in the day as a teen, I feel like. Right. It was kind of like, how do I fill this weekend day? And then
well, movies, but if you're
movies, video games, going to the park. Boo.
The park is nice. What's wrong with the park?
I don't know. When I was 14, my guess is I was sort of like,
your grimy London park.
So instead, I would go to Rowan's, which was a bowling alley and an arcade, and that is a very, very cherished spot in my childhood. And it had a bar, and I could order food at the bar, and they had something called the combo platter for £5. It was like chicken fingers, fries, and onion rings, all on one big plate.
I mean, this is
all the food groups covered.
the triangle.
Vegetables, starch, protein.
The full pyramid. Yeah.
By the way, I did briefly consider punishing you for dangling Clueless in front of me by bringing back, I didn't know you grew up in England, blah, and I did.
You don't understand.
But I didn't want to do that.
Too complicated.
No, I know. So I briefly was like, I know it's been retired. And I was like, I'm going to unretire it forcibly. And then I watched I Can Never Be Your Woman. And I was like, if there were any episode to do it on, that'd be the one. So never mind. Fuck it.
Fuck, we should have done it on
It's a heavy Brit
and I was like, I tried. I was like, I don't think it's funny. I think I had a mean moment. I was like, I just want to see him squirm. And I was like, let's not do that.
You even told me at David's birthday that you wanted my help doing a bit to torture him.
Then I thought about like what that would actually look like and the conversation I'd have with you to make that happen. I was like,
you know what the bit should have been for I Should Never Be Your Woman? It should have been arguing that David grew up in California.
Sure.
Being like, no, you think that was
London?
That was Los Angeles.
No.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Sunny, so sunny.
Yes.
The sun.
Yes.
Ah,
Remember, you were surrounded by people
lit.
with perfect Californian accents.
I mean, perfect is a
brightest
stretch.
town.
Hello.
I do respect that David
from
Mitchell
San
was like,
Diego. What?
we're not
I
doing
just
that.
got
David
back
Mitchell
from the
just straight up.
beach.
David Mitchell, right, is the one who's like, I'm
The only
not,
one.
I'm not doing that.
Like,
Yeah.
it's not.
I'm
You
not doing
don't
that.
want to hear what that is.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
we're
not going to do that.
I want to step back and doing a little table setting here because you've alluded to this. But all this conversation, by the way, was relevant because this is a movie about like, do you want to stay young forever?
Right. What is it to be eternally a certain age? Yes.
Right. Caroline, you had 2 blockbuster appearances on this podcast.
Blockbuster's
Covering
very
2
funny.
huge movies.
Yes.
Showgirls, a big episode, a big
I know.
film.
I feel like I'm really glad I didn't think that one. I didn't overthink that one because the second I left, I was like, I feel like that was a big movie.
This is what you said at David's birthday. You said like, I
Said a
never
lot at
would get an
David's
episode like that today. And I didn't even realize how big it was until I left. And we were like, Caroline, every time we put a new miniseries on the schedule, I say to David, what about Framke? We haven't had Framke on in too long. And your response is often, I don't want to do something if I don't feel strongly about it. I'm not going to take a slot for someone who would care more about something else, which I've always thought was very respectable. But you did that in Kiki.
But I have
2 great movies.
I've thrown you a lot of options.
He has thrown me options.
and
over the
you've
years, I
usually
will say
kind of
that.
been like, David Lynch, I don't know that I, am engaged enough with that to be,
And then it's
your
someone
wording
like
you
that.
said to
right?
me is like, I don't want to take it away from someone who really wants to
Right.
do it.
I mean,
which
I
is
feel
very
like
thoughtful of you.
yeah, like there's something. I feel like there would be something interesting about doing. Like if I were to do a David Lynch, it'd be coming from the perspective of I've never fully engaged with his work in a way that maybe I wanted to, and that would be different. But I'm like, there's so much to say about it from a perspective of people who know and love him. I have so many Lynch obsessives in my life that I was like, I can't even do that to them. People who aren't even in contention to be on just people.
To people. We put Heckerling on the spreadsheet. I go, this feels like a Framke moment, right? David has some offline conversation with you that I'm not part of. And then you get slotted in for Vamps. And it was like, that sort of makes sense. That feels like a good fit.
And you'd seen it.
Well, that was the thing is that
I didn't know that.
You didn't. Okay, so you didn't
Yeah.
know that. All right,
But
you keep going.
No, you jump in with what you were going to say.
Well, it's just he asked me like, "Oh, do you have any strong feelings about Vamps?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I mean, I saw it and I liked it." And he was like, "So you saw it?" Like
Yeah,
he like
that was
stopped
already,
me.
I was like, oh.
And I was like, "Yeah." And I guess I did not at that time know the full lore of just how limited this one theater release was.
We will get to.
We will get to how I did see it. But I was like, "Oh yeah," and I saw it. And he was like, "Okay, so did you like it?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Okay, great."
You're doing that.
And I said, "Fine."
I think we knew when we committed to this series that it would be harder to book her final 2 films.
Yes.
In
no
particular,
doubt.
that didn't get real releases. And that you're like, as much as Heckerling is serious, there aren't a lot of Heckerling auteurs out there who are like, well, of course I've watched every one of her films. Most people don't know these 2 movies ever happened, right?
Yes.
And so when we get to positions like this, there's often this thing of like, look, we can ask a friend of ours who's a good guest to watch it cold for the first time. But it's always better if we know someone who actually has seen it previously and has any feeling about it, right? Where you're not just rolling the dice of someone coming in and being like,
it was fine.
I mean,
right.
there's
Love it or hate it, it's better if there's some feeling in history.
There's certain things like I Could Never Be Your Woman, where honestly, that movie turned out to be a lot weirder than I thought it was. But initially, I was sort of like, at least it's not a big ask of a guest of like, hey, watch this 90-minute movie with Paul Rudd in it. Like, you'll have an.
You did ask me if I would be interested in that one. And I was like, between
too.
the 2, I would rather.
We
Vamps,
kept
for
asking people, hey, here's the Heckerling list, but if you have any relationship to Loser, I Could Never Be Your Woman on Vamps, please let us know.
Whereas there are certain movies I feel like where it's like you're making a bit more consequential ask of someone to watch some heavy movie that nobody, I don't know, like it hasn't come up in a while because we've been doing all these big shots.
But these have been, right, like true kind of movies that don't exist. So David does not relay to me that you had seen the film. I thought you were doing us a mitzvah, right? That you were like, I like vampires. Mm-hmm. I like comedies. This feels like a fun thing to watch for the first time. Then we have another past guest, hopefully future guest, reach out to us from out of town.
Who doesn't live
here anymore. Yeah. And was like, I might be in town in this exact window. Is there anything you guys could throw at me? And we said, have you seen I Could Never Be Your Woman? And her response was, no, but I love Vamps. And I was like, fuck, here's someone who's passionate about Vamps. do we bump Framke off of Vamps? Because I thought you were just doing us a solid, replacing it with Passion, right? So then we bump you. David offers Clueless.
Yeah, and I was like, all right. I truly was like, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure you're not going to get someone for Clueless?
Consolation prize trade up.
Yeah. And I truly was like a little stressed about it because I was like, Clueless is Clueless, but I will do it. Like, what am I going to say no to Clueless? Like, I'm not going to say no to Clueless.
And then this other person's, and
now it's aired.
Well, then David also relates to me. Framke's kind of bummed that she's not doing Vamps, so I'm going to offer her Clueless. And I was like, I didn't realize she actually liked it.
Sure.
Right. Then the other person's travel plans got changed. Was like, I probably won't be here until the fall. And I was like, we kind of got to move Framke back to Vamps because no one else will want to do Vamps.
And I believe David's text to me was, Caroline, I am on my knees begging you to do Vamps.
A little bit.
A little bit.
No, that's literally what you said.
A lot of it.
And I was like, all right, so who do you have?
We are very appreciative of you.
Oh, no, it's fine. And honestly, frankly, I think it did work out. I have, I think, a lot more specific stuff to say about Vamps. And also, it is only spiritually correct that a blonde did Clueless. It's just right.
Yeah,
it's just right. It's not the first time a blonde has taken my thing, and it won't be the last.
And dare I say it, a raven-haired snarkster doing Vamps.
Thank you so much.
True.
Thank you so much.
It is aesthetically...
And I don't have my summer tan yet. I'm not Kristen Ritter.
But... May is just upon us. The tanning opportunities are just beginning.
Now. Yeah.
Now, before we dig into the movie proper, I just want to give you a shout out. Beyond just you doing us a big solid in this crazy musical chairs of booking for this season, I walk in, you are finishing up a caricature of your own face and taping it to the front of your desk because you're jealous that you don't have a cartoon avatar
you don't
yourself.
have to say that she's jealous.
I mean, I was. It's fine.
Okay.
You go, that's much better now. And then you immediately say, now I need shit on my desk to compete with me.
Well, I didn't realize there were
too much
desks
shit on my
in
desk.
general.
Yes.
I have not been to the studio yet. Last time I was on the show was 6 years ago for Kiki's Delivery Service.
It was at the old Audio Boom Studios.
Yep. And I walked in. Ben was the only one here. I beat both of you, which is, again, I'm thrilled because I'm never the first anywhere, as mentioned.
Sure.
When you walked in, though, I was not crying, though.
No,
this time you were not.
Dry-eyed.
But you very quickly established a good desk spread of the kind of chaos that I enjoy.
I'm glad I brought the bag I did today because I had a lot of stuff in it. 3
beverages, notebook, novel.
Yep.
And then vape.
No, that's actually lipstick. Actually, and this is not a novel. This is Maeve Brennan's The Long-Winded Lady, which is anecdotes from New York City and actually feels very Goody Rutherford in that way.
Yes.
But she's just like...
That's lipstick?
Oh, yeah. It's like...
Okay.
It's like a
it's
one of those. Yeah.
Okay.
And then I had an O'Mary playbill.
Yep.
I think this I think this is the Titus one. I saw both.
Uh-huh.
And then some glow-in-the-dark temp tattoos. You gave
3
me 3
Beetlejuice plushies and a Poppy from Trolls.
Yep. And then I have an assortment of Sour Patch lemonade flavor for sustenance.
We're doing great.
Yeah, no, I'm in it for the long haul. Here we go.
Ben, why did this movie put you in a weird mood?
It's a bit of a weird movie.
It is.
To be clear.
Yeah, I don't know. There's the quality.
The sort of general, like, I'm eating a generic brand versus this is the RC Cola.
It's a little CW.
Sure,
right? A little bit. Yeah. It takes you back to that time of the aughts.
Well, a happy time for you?
A chaotic time.
A chaotic time. Yeah. I would say I was living my life in a certain way where I don't really remember much of that time.
Quarter mile at a time.
You know?
Yep.
What do you call this era? This is like post-indie sleaze. Yeah, but has anyone named this
What's
area?
Happening in the
early
culture?
2010s core?
I guess it's not indie sleaze.
It's like the recession era, like, is the problem. It's kind of just like everyone's a little bummed out.
Just post-recession, indie sleaze.
I feel like this kind of has to be post-indie sleaze. Like, I think no one has...
No, for sure.
Earmarked it, but I think some transition has happened that still owes something to indie sleaze.
Yeah.
I don't think it's been defined really yet.
Post-recession is a good stance.
Yeah, right. What's the music people are listening to in 2012?
I mean, I do.
Drake.
Jesus. Yeah, let's really junk that era. It's in the bin.
It does weirdly feel like Kristen Ritter is the perfect ultimate avatar of early 2010s New York. Not just because she was the Bee.
Oh, the Bee. See? We can talk about the Bee. This was the right episode for
that show exists because it was just like she's embodying something that we gotta put on television.
No one, like, she really wears a chunky necklace well, even though she's got, she's quite
a skinny frame
and a leather
lady.
jacket.
But the necklaces still don't wear her. She likes a slightly puffed shoulder. We had a lot of like slightly puffed shoulders.
Well, so the Bee, we met the Bee.
We met the Bee
in 2012, the year the Vamps came out.
The apartment 23.
And
don't trust her.
Yeah.
Don't you trust her?
And I've told this story before, but I lived in a building in apartment 22 at that time. And I kept filling out forms
to that
wrong.
Bee?
No, I truly, when I
was
had to
almost
fill
the
out
Bee.
my address, I kept thinking like, I live in apartment 23, right? And I couldn't remember if it was me or the Bee. And mail kept getting delivered to my next door neighbor. And they were like, you fucking filled it out for 23 again.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Anyway, that's a true story.
The Bee is supposed to be, she's kind of coming off her indie sleep. You know, she's like a party girl who's sort of like, do I need to stop being?
Is this sustainable?
The Bee?
No, the Bee loves her lifestyle. That's the whole thing.
You're right.
She does not grow or change.
She's no good because she's the Bee.
She's the Bee. Like she's fond of the people she's fond of. Her best friend James Vanderbeek playing James Vanderbeek.
Yes. And it also was plausible that she'd be friends with, you know, kind of post Dawson's Creek James Vanderbeek.
I mean, he's so good on that show. It's such a funny bit.
And it was Eric Andre and Dreama Walker?
Yes.
Eric Andre, Dreama Walker was the nice girl, right?
Yes.
Yeah, she was the nice girl who moved in as the roommate who the Bee.
She won't be beed.
She won't be beed, and all
By
the
the
other
Bee.
roommates have been beed. So the Bee does begrudgingly respect her. But
Apparently,
she does
Eric
not
Andre's
change her
character
ways.
was meek.
He
That's
was
his name or the personality?
No,
The
he was
personality. I'm like,
he was
Eric
like-
Andre seems bad
because
casting.
he was like Dreama Walker's
I'm shy.
co-worker at Starbucks, basically,
Okay.
and he liked her.
He was an awkward guy.
But it was weird casting, knowing what Eric Andre is and can do. And I don't think they ever really got a chance to let him do that. It also aired completely out of order. So just like Vamps, it got a very weird release situation, and it never
Was it 2
really
seasons or 1?
2.
Yeah.
But the second season aired completely out of order.
Okay.
Right. The second season got that.
I think it's still out of order on Hulu. Like you
ABC
do have to like,
sitcom treatment where they were like,
but there was some plot. Like there wasn't a ton of like overarching plot, but enough where you're like, wait,
Right.
what is this? Like,
I mean, Happy Endings had the same experience.
Yeah.
And, right. Like, ABC was just always a little bit
I
like,
feel like
what, you like these? Ugh.
I liked happy endings. I feel like I said this to you, like the way
You
a
said
lot of
this to
people
me.
feel about happy endings and they were, you know, a lot of people were very devastated by happy endings ending. I was sad, but I was so much sadder about the Bee.
Kristen Ritter was on her kind of version of a Zooey Deschanel track where she kept playing like best friends and being like, man, she's really good with like the like off the shoulder, like one line responses, this sort of side snark. And then they clearly were like, can we make her a lead? And Don't Trust the Bee was like part of that project.
But the
right?
Bee, but the fact that the Bee didn't change is maybe what made people not totally, you know, get with it. They were like, but she's supposed to grow and change. And she was like, I don't have any interest in doing
Well,
that,
she
actually.
wasn't really the protagonist of the show.
No,
like,
it
she
was
was the
Dreama.
main character. Right.
Yeah.
But this thing I think about all the time with her, I think she had several children and kind of like disappeared for a bunch of years. And now, of course, was in Sonic 3 and seems to be working more. But for someone who was so omnipresent, really in like the first half of the 2010s.
Yeah, because it was Jessica Jones.
Yes.
Yeah.
She's so great in Jessica Jones.
She's great.
She's great.
Yeah.
Um,
Jessica Jones kind of, season 1 of Jessica Jones, such an unambiguous success in an era of superhero TV that is largely not.
So immediately different. So
right.
interesting. And the
I don't remember-
Tenet character is so scary.
He's so great.
It's kind of the only one of those Netflix seasons that has like
Exactly. I don't remember much about the other 2 seasons.
No,
Yeah.
I kind of forgot
Yeah.
there were
There's
2 seasons, and I'm
3
sure
whole
I watched
seasons.
and reviewed them all.
I don't know, guys. Iron Fist.
I mean, that guy did
He
have
did
the
have
fist of iron.
And it stuck with me. I remember every part.
It was like it was Jessica
Whoa.
Jones and it was Daredevil and those, and now Daredevil's back, but where's Jessica Jones?
In my head,
I was surprised she wasn't on it ever.
my guess is they're waiting to do something cool with it.
That's
They
another
kind of
like
know.
casting that everyone kind of agrees with unambiguously like worked.
It did work, which when it was announced, I was completely like, that's not how I
She was
imagined
not
that
the
character.
obvious type.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
But I like the character a lot in comics.
Here's what I was going to say. I have a very vivid memory of this, and I think about this way too often. She does Don't Trust the Bee. And it was just sort of like, okay, this lasted 2 seasons and it made it to air, but it didn't quite work. And it felt like all the networks were like, there's probably a hit show starring Kristen Ritter and we want to solve what it is. She feels like she should be the lead of a hit show. And these are the final years of like the traditional pilot system.
Like, let's get you a show. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Where like every January before they start auditioning, the networks all start like competing with each other. The pile of spec scripts that they have acquired being like, if we can attach a big name to this, this is a go pilot. And someone like Kristen Ritter, who was seen as like hot, you know, and had like value, and was ready to be the star of a TV show, they're all sending her their like 20 best scripts and being like, do you like any of these? And for, I want to say 3 years in a row, Kristen Ritter signed on, straight offer, first position, big pilot show that didn't go. And I was stuck in these fucking pilot system runners every year and being like, well, this script's really good. And it's got Kristen Ritter. This show's definitely going to happen.
Do you remember what any of them were about?
One of them, I believe, was written by our friend Leslie Headland. That was an adaptation of her play Assistance.
Oh, yes. I remember that.
Sort of loosely fictionalized her nightmare experiences working at the Weinstein Company.
Right, yes. I remember this.
Alfred Molina was going to play the Weinstein analog.
Oh my God.
And was a really good dark
Alfred Molina.
script. Yes.
Yeah, that would be
Alfred Molina.
Let's clarify.
There was another one that was like, I want to say a 60s NASA space race show. And there's one other one I'm forgetting. But in that era, it's like someone like Kristen Ritter has to make a big choice every January of which pilot she's attaching herself to. And yet, it just might not get picked up. And if that's the case, everyone basically goes, cool, we'll see you in a year.
Well, the interesting thing about her, too, is that, I mean, when you mentioned those two things and then mentioning the Bee, Vamps, that kind of stuff, her taste is, you know, a little bit more offbeat than I feel like she might get credit for. It's the kind of thing, too, when I was watching this and when I watched I Can Never Be Your Woman for the first time, and I was kind of thinking about all the Heckerling stuff just to get myself in the state of mind. I was like, oh, Heckerling's a fucking weirdo, too. Like she is.
It's a good
complimentary.
Yes,
she is.
She's a little goth weirdo herself.
Right. And like, you know, she like choices like, you know, Ullman as Mother Earth, that kind of thing where you're like, what are we doing here?
Well, that's a choice I might have advised her on. Right. Her royal vizier.
But it's a strong choice nonetheless. And it's the kind of thing that it seems like Kristen Ritter really responds to, is this kind of stuff where it's slightly off. And I'm not surprised that the pilots she chose then did not catch on.
They were all good. I remember every year being like, well, this is the best script this year, and being astounded when it wouldn't get picked up for who knows what fucking reason. I even think one of them got picked up and then like unpicked up at some point.
Yeah, I feel like probably, especially knowing Leslie's, you know, what the plays are like and then what happened. I mean, she did Bachelorette. She managed to make that pretty vicious, but not as vicious, that kind of thing.
I think it was trying to do
I'm sure she got network notes to death.
Yes, but like the old rigid pilot system network TV model at a time where people were still kind of wary of going to cable or going to streaming, and also the money was so fucking good if you could get on a hit show, there was no off cycle. That was like the calendar of which the thing happened, and if you picked the wrong thing in the spring, you were fucked until the next year, right? And in between, it's like Kristen Ritter's like, okay, so I like play X's snarky best friend again in a Paramount movie, or do I play like the lead in a lower budget Amy Heckerling movie, and the next year hopefully I get another shot at TV. And then it felt like she did the Jessica Jones move at the moment where it was like, yeah, streaming does seem to be the place to go. And if you're playing a Marvel character, that feels like you're set for your life. And the first season totally worked, and then like the entire Marvel Netflix experience like dissipates. And it's, this just like 7-year run of interesting energy from Kristen Ritter that then has kind of like
I don't know what you're talking about. Did you not hear the echoes?
Oh, that was a Marvel Spotlight, wasn't it?
No.
It was not.
What if Orphan Black had an echo? Orphan Black echoes.
Oh, is she on that?
Echo.
Or she was the star of it.
Has that already come and gone?
Yeah.
Of course it. You watched
What if Orphan Black
every
did
week
not
on Blank
have...
Check, you were like, you guys echo tonight? Do you guys hear the echo?
What if Orphan Black did not have Tatiana Maslany was basically the...
Well, this is like Hollywood's newest, greatest pitch, Tron Ares. We all know that your least favorite thing about those Tron movies is that they take place inside a computer. Can't we get out of that damn boring world and place Tron on the streets of Los Angeles?
Look,
every time I see that trailer,
it looks
I
cool.
laugh and laugh.
Right. But it is one of those things where I was just like, that was like truly a great way to wound me.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, I love the insane logic of the video game world, right? And they're like, no, the bike should go on a street, like a highway.
I don't hate the trailer,
should it?
But it feels so fundamentally perverse to me of being like, don't worry, no circuit boards this time.
It's what you do with Tron 8.
Yes. Yes.
Like, right? Anyway.
Which Tron is this? This is
Three. Tron Ares.
I'm sorry.
In which
You
Jared
did
Leto plays a computer virus who comes to our world.
He sounds
You know
fine.
what? That
makes
sounds
sense.
about right for where Jared Leto came from.
Yeah, I forgot to mention it's a documentary.
Yeah.
My thing with Kristen Ritter was that she was on Veronica Mars for like 8 episodes.
Yes.
And then she was on Gilmore Girls for 8 episodes. And then she was on Breaking Bad. And it was one of those things where it's like, that saucer-eyed goth keeps popping up. And so you did feel it in the air of like, they're trying to find the thing for
That's
her.
another like sort of Star Trek thing is like giving people good extended
longer
arcs.
runs. Yes.
Right. And it's clear that there's just like, we have negotiated for 6 episodes, not that she's like being brought back because she's working. Like they're like, we have planned an arc that we're pitching to you. And it just felt like she was on the cusp of something bigger for so long. I always like her. And I will say, watching this movie, it stirred things in me that I had not felt in a long time.
Oh, you were...
I find her very appealing in this.
You find a pale woman very appealing?
This is what's odd. She is so much my type, and yet it was never registering for me previously as hard as it did while watching this.
You were in a show with her, were you not?
Was she on Political Animals?
No. Are you not in Gravity?
I am, but
Isn't
I
she
did
the
not
star
work
of
with
that?
her. You
Sure.
are right.
Right.
I was on 4 episodes of the deeply remembered Starz original series. I think it was Starz' first original series. This, of course, is a Starz movie. But yes, she was the lead of Gravity. And I played a gay computer hacker.
Fabulous. Vamps.
That was one of my lines, yeah.
That's right. I was trying to remember who Kristen Ritter
fabulous.
played on Veronica Mars. I thought she was the recast of Leighton Meester, but no, she was playing Steve Guttenberg's daughter.
Yeah,
Right.
It's not a good time for the show. She often would appear on these shows when the shows kind of
Or
needed-
past the peak of the thing.
Yes, we're past their peak.
Well, that was season 2, which was kind of a dip, and then 3 was an upswing.
Is it 2 that she's in or 3?
I think it's 2.
Yes,
Yeah,
2.
yeah.
Because 3's the college
the
season.
Gutenberg.
Interesting. It's flawed.
2's Goody.
Yeah, it's real goody.
Just very clear that it had the 1 season arc, but anyway, yes.
It-
But she's very
exactly.
sweet in Vamps. There's one line in it that's so the bee that I was like, oh, this is where she was. Where the introduction of Homeland Security as the big bad comes in, which I have so much to say about. And she just goes, oh, the terrorists ruined it for everyone. Ruined things for everyone. It was such a bee line.
Movie has a lot of good lines. I do think maybe that's part of it, though, is like her thing is usually the like acid sarcasm.
Mm-hmm.
And this
yeah,
is
she's
just
more the
completely
wide-eyed innocent here.
Yeah.
Yes, or whatever.
She's just completely lovely, bubbly.
which she
she's good
does
at.
really well, and yet still has like the Kristen Ritter darkness to her, which I think so much of it is that like, and we should crack open the dossier, but so much of these interviews we read with Amy Heckerling, like the ongoing theme of her work is like the fight between the pessimist and the optimist, that she inherently feels like this dark, tortured, acidic, critical person. And yet she loves making movies about optimists.
It's the New Yorker and the Los Angelino,
Yeah.
right? Yes. Yeah.
I mean, it's
yeah,
very,
yeah.
what was that, not to go, let's quote a tweet, but the tweet I do think, the one tweet I think about the most is when someone called LA shitty heaven and New York fun hell. And you know what?
That's really
it's true.
good.
Having lived in both now.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're allowed.
I just think that there is, both of these characters feel like stand-ins for Heckerling in different ways, but there's something in casting Kristen Ritter to play an optimist that feels like you are for the first time physicalizing the innate tension within her work in one character.
So Amy Heckerling releases a film called I Could Never Be Your Woman in 2007. It made like $200 or $300 million. Exactly. And so unsurprisingly starts to explore the world of episodic television after that, because it's such an anonymous film. And so she does direct the 6th episode of the first season of The Office.
The introduction of Amy Adams.
Hot Girl.
Yes. Arguably the best episode of the first season.
I'm just going to say it.
Yeah.
No, no Office. I won't be
you're
discussing
shutting it all
that
down.
show.
It's the new Juilliard. We're never going to let you live down
You
your
know,
fucking Juilliard anger.
That's fine.
On our
Fuck
Superman
that place.
episode.
The thing with The Office is,
Oh, see, I thought we were not discussing The Office.
Oh, David.
I won't be engaging with that. Try to show me some nostalgic clip of,
Sure.
some hijinks on the. I'm like, no, I don't wish for that to be in my life anymore.
It is bizarre.
Not that it was ever a big part of my life, because I never loved the show, but I certainly watched the show pretty much through the end. I guess I sort of fell off after Carell
I'm
left.
making a weird face looking at Griffin.
The camera's kind of zooming in on you.
I'm doing like a crash zoom.
Maybe we'll check in with you later in the talking head segment.
Yeah, maybe you have something to say later behind closed doors, straight to camera.
So, like when you say the Amy Adams episode of The Office, I'm like, I saw it one time.
Okay, but her directing that episode is actually kind of perfect.
Is it? Because she's a pro.
Well, because she comes in to sell bags, and everyone thinks she's hot.
Amy Adams does.
Uh-huh. And it's like she is presented very much as, what if Pam were hot, is kind of the thing, which is rude to Pam.
Right. And it activates the thing.
Like her hair is even redder. She's like, her sweaters actually fit. Like she and Jim get along and there's no obstacle. And but it's like, that's very, Sterling's good at that.
Activates the thing in her of she is still engaged to the fucking guy in the warehouse. And is just sort of like having fun, like sort of having this side flirtation with Jim, and then she sees for the first time like the idea of him being with someone else, which activates jealousy in her.
And she didn't write that. I mean, I can't imagine she wrote that, but there's also that extended bit where it's because like there's a fire alarm or something. Is that? Or no, that's later. Amy Adams comes back and there's a whole desert island movie bit. That's
Amy
different.
Adams did a whole little arc across the first.
Wasn't she already? I guess it's sort of like right when she's starting to get bigger, like Junebug era.
Correct. It's like once she gets the Oscar nomination for Junebug, she unsurprisingly never comes back to The Office.
Interesting.
But she is on it a handful of times leading right up to that.
But Amy Heckerling doing, I'm insecure around this hot woman.
Right.
That tracks.
And like The Office had kind of overqualified directors, especially as it went on.
It would have people.
It was Paul Feig and Harold Ramis and Jason Reitman. And it was just sort of like, this is a cool show the movie directors can work on and not have it seem like their career slipped down a rung. And there's maybe a larger sea change in the industry happening around that time where like her doing TV doesn't look as bad as it would have 5 years earlier even.
Yes. Well, she does that, and then she gets signed on to 1985, which was basically like, do you want to do a Wonder Years? Like an Amy Heckerling Wonder Years.
Makes sense.
A show that would center on a girl growing up in the 80s, narrated by a woman in the present day. I mean, it sounds fine. It plans to use music of the period as a bad. It truly is. They might as well just be like Wonder Years. We're going to do a Wonder Years. But none of that came to fruition. And instead, in 2012, we get Vamps. Now, in 2005, we get Twilight. In 2008, we get the movie Twilight. 2008, we get True Blood. 2009, we get CW's The Vampire Diaries. Relax, Ben!
He has a knife?
But Heckerling says she more is drafting off of Buffy as a sort of an earlier vampire work.
And even more specifically, that her brother was obsessed with the Buffy movie. And she was like, I want to do something like this. And then she went to the original producers of the movie and pitched it to them and then was like, you idiot.
Already did this, yeah.
They're not going to say yes to this if they've already done a thing like this. But there was a bit of a micro trend, I feel, in the post-Twilight, Vampire Diaries, True Blood landscape.
Well, and Buffy was pre-Twilight, and that was my seminal vampire for sure.
Sure. But I think those three things getting big and being cool and sexy, right? You would feel this thing of like maybe somewhat forgotten directors coming out and being like, well, I have a vampire script. Where it felt like, are vampires just innately bankable? Is it easier to get money if you have a vampire hook? Mm-hmm. Only Lovers Left Alive comes out 2 years after this? 1 year after. Yeah. But was a similar thing, I feel like, when he was doing interviews where he was like, this is not a post-Twilight movie for me. I was not inspired by this. This is a thing I couldn't get made until Twilight, which is exactly what happened to her.
Makes sense that suddenly it's just a little bit more like, oh, well, vampires are in right now. So sure.
And vampires are such an elastic metaphor. It is actually kind of wild how many different pointed ways you can use vampirism to say something, be it personal or cultural. That it makes sense that a lot of different directors would be like, yeah, I can make a personal vampire movie. That's not me just cashing in on trend. That's me Trojan horse and something else I want to say.
What was Nosferatu's whole deal?
What do you mean? What is my deal?
Do we all enjoy Sigourney Weaver doing Nosferatu?
Yes. She is so tall.
She does a lot of bits. She does like a full kind of fucking Mad TV audition reel.
It's a few racist jokes.
Yes.
Too.
Some of these cultural stereotypes seem antiquated.
I understand that's the point of the character.
I also get full from Chinese food. I don't know what she's talking about.
That is one of those things where I'm like, Chinese food is very heavy. I say often.
This is offensive on two levels.
No,
it's culturally regressive and wrong.
But it is one of those racist old jokes you hear, I guess.
She puts on like a Gilbert Gottfried voice to do it. It's
maybe Sigourney's always had a bit of the Gottfried in her. I don't know.
I mean, she does. She's looking like she's having fun. She's basically playing like, what if Zool had fun?
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's very her vibe in the ending scene where she's like floating towards people.
There's the one scene where they dress her in a way that feels very evocative, where they give her the full perm and she's in the kind of gold dress.
And there's no way they didn't think of that. So this is also Mona May, right? The same costume designer as...
Oh, really?
I think, this is the same costume designer as Clueless.
Yes, that makes sense.
Which you can also tell everything's so rooted in time period. There's so many very specific time period things. And that's something too that I feel like Heckerling is so, it doesn't surprise me at all that someone tried to get her to do a 1985 movie, because each one of her films, and not even just because of the references they make.
Yeah.
Like not even just the references, which are obviously specific. Even though the situation has endured. He is a sober father now. He's doing very well. But everything is so rooted in the time period that it's in to a degree that can be uncomfortable if you lived through it. I get it.
It can, and it's also like there's
making pointed contact.
I think there is a certain discomfort I feel watching it in seeing them try to evoke that specifically on such limited resources, where it starts to feel like a weird kind of cosplay, hollow evocation, just because they don't have the space to get it right. Like something like Clueless, which is obviously exaggerated in a cartoonified version. And they talk about sort of like we were amplifying and exaggerating the fashion trends. And then they sort of became their own fashion trends.
Yeah. And they were also working with, more expensive clothes in the first place because these kids are rich.
Mona May did like a very good job with what she was allotted. But you feel it stuck slightly in a weird space of being like a little more heightened than realistic, but not heightened enough to be funny, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And it's also because I feel like sometimes it's a little hard to tell when it is supposed to be. Like, I feel like a lot of the clothes Kristen Ritter wears in this movie are of the 2012s, but through they are also trying to be through the lens of she was turned in the 80s. So like everything is a little exaggerated.
Yep. Here's what I think is so...
No, silence. I had something to say.
What do you have to say?
No, go ahead. What do you...
No. I just imagine you doing the hands that they do in this movie when they're trying to get people to...
That is, do you think... when you remember what you wanted to say.
I am displeased that Sinners has done better than my movie.
I'm so sad I have no choice but to go fuck.
I'm horny. Slow horny. The kind of horny I am is very slow.
I am single and ready to mingle.
He's like, he hollers at you, but he hollers at you by being like, in 3 days, I will very slowly fuck you. Like, so it's like, it's a long wait.
It will be great. He's an
but then when he fucks you, he's going to like crawl up the bed. Yes, he's a big edger. God, is he edging in that.
Was your father a baker? Because it looks like you are smuggling 2 buns.
This is kind of crass of me, but
let's go.
I think Nosferatu probably goons.
I'm always gooning in my casa.
I have so many tabs open.
I owe OnlyFans thousands of ducats, whatever money.
Ducats.
I send more ducats than they're asking for.
Right? Yeah. They're like, this will be $10. You can have 15. I'm big like that.
How much for a dick rating?
I'm so pleased I get to see that.
Of course.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Vamps.
But yes, every vampire has their thing. His is being a sex freak. A lot of vampires are sex freaks. It's interesting that they're not here.
She says is often in vampire stuff, it's sex. True Blood and Twilight, obviously. That's the sort of big thing with the metaphor here. But no, she's much more interested in the agelessness, the idea of being eternally young, but from different time periods.
Well, here's the super potent thing in this movie that once I locked into this is what she's doing, I was on board, which is she is commenting on her weird state as a person whose currency professionally comes from Amy Heckerling is good at understanding the youth. The younger generations, what is hip, what is cool, what is new. She has done this across decades, right? Not just did she do it when she was young, but she was able to still lock into it 10, 15 years later. And like, what is this weird balance of being someone whose life is about trying to stay professionally engaged with what is young and new and hip, when part of her is also just like, I like old gangster movies, right? Like, I don't want to deal with this shit. And it's this fight of just being like, it is exhausting. As much as like people like the idea of staying young forever, how badly do I now just want to let myself be an old woman and just not have to keep up with this shit?
Yeah. No goody in the...
How long can we just go to clubs every night?
Right.
And have to worry about the right outfits and knowing the right bands and all this shit.
She's a night person, she says. She's always figured such a lifestyle might be fun for a while. Eternal youth in New York. She liked playing around with the slang from different eras. It's kind of fun. She's always kind of like to play around with slang. She doesn't like the Twilight vampires. She doesn't like that they can be outside in the daytime.
I mean, that is the thing. Like, I wasn't a Twilight, early adopter, girly, ironic or otherwise. But when I found out that they can go into the sunlight, and not only can they, but it makes them beautiful, twinkling creatures.
Yeah.
I'm like, these are fucking unicorns. Like, these are not.
Excuse me.
Fucking.
Caroline, it does not make them a beautiful, twinkly creature. That is the skin of a monster.
I'm a monster, a horny monster. She's
really good fucking Edward Cullen impression there.
Yeah, well.
I'm Edward Cullen. You smell disgusting. Let me get up in those guts.
That's the Edward Cullen in the world where Wallace Shawn is Mr. Van Helsing.
Yeah,
my God,
it took us a long time to get there.
One movie that she kind of liked was, she's obviously seen Nosferatu or Bela Lugosi's Dracula or whatever. She really kind of
this movie that shows no interest in German expressionism,
but she really kind of enjoyed Gerard Butler's Dracula 2000.
Oh, sure.
She says, I liked his take on it. It was as though Dracula was doomed or cursed because he was Judas, and that's why he doesn't like seeing crosses. It's a very different take on Dracula. She digs that. She likes monster movies in general. She likes The Wolfman with Lon Chaney.
Oh, the Universal classics.
But she thinks vampires are a good metaphor for Jews, outsiders that feel disenfranchised from whatever else is doing.
Trying to pass.
So that's the. Are you speeding through these, or should I?
Caroline, what gives you that vibe? I feel like he's taking a lot of time and consideration for everything he's saying.
He's got his bullet point. I'm just like,
I'm looking at the dossier. It's fucking long.
Caroline, what did that spark in you?
Well, yeah, I mean, I feel like when I first started rewatching Vamps, I don't think I ever said how I watched Vamps in the first place.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
I was trying to remember how the hell I saw.
had not seen it until yesterday.
Really? Okay, so none of you had seen it until this week. Okay.
No.
So that's why when David expressed shock that I'd never seen it, I was trying to remember how the hell I saw it. I was in LA in 2012. I moved out there in 2011, and I was like, did I go to the one theater it was released in?
There was not very thorough box office reporting on this, but Box Office Mojo claims it played in one theater for 2 weeks. Now, I remember it playing in at least one theater in New York City. I remember intending to go see it. I want to say at the Village East, and it was gone before I got around to it. It was really like a movie that stars Anchor Bay, primarily a DVD distributor and
not
a television
distributor
network.
of like fancy DVDs, kind of a cheapo DVD distributor.
Like mostly like cult horror movies, doing like 40 editions of Evil Dead and whatever. Got the distribution rights for this movie sort of a bit after filming had wrapped. And they announced it as like, Vamps getting a theatrical release will be available to rent digitally 10 days later, which in 2012, that did not happen often, that the turnaround was that quick and was sort of like screamed contractual obligation to put this in one theater. Maybe it was 1 week in one theater in LA and 1 week in one theater in New York.
Quite possible.
Maybe. I mean, but I do think I was trying to trace it, and, I don't have a totally satisfying answer to this because I never fully got it. But I asked my friend Karinza, who I hung out with a lot when I first was in LA, where we might have seen this, because I was sure it was with her, because I feel like when I first moved to LA, the idea was I'm working in TV and I'm going to like say yes to everything. And I'm
Hollywood
go see all
Framke.
stuff. Hollywood Fram. And I feel like it must have screened somewhere. Her best guess, and
Interesting.
It might have been like a special screening at, there was a theater called Cinefamily.
Yeah.
On Fairfax, which has since shut down for sex pest reasons.
Very familiar.
But they screened a lot of things, and it would not have been out of the question for something like this to screen there. And I feel like, because I definitely remember seeing it we could have rented it, but I think we saw it in a theater, and I was just going to screenings. And when she was like, do you want to go to this thing it's from the director of Clueless. It's about vampires. I'm like, what's there not to like about that? And then I just never researched it any further and did not realize it was such a tortured, weird, obscure situation.
Yeah,
until basically David asked me to be on the podcast.
Was basically a straight to VOD streaming disc.
Before release. that, I didn't even know. I just was like, but that was all the pitch I needed. There was an audience.
Yes, Cinefamily was the kind of place to be like, we're going to take Amy Heckerling seriously, right? But I imagine, yes, probably disproportionately the amount of people who ever saw this in a theater saw it at screenings like that versus commercial release. I mean, what is the reported final box office gross for this movie? $10,000?
$3,000. It's not amazing.
You're right. You know what? You're right. It's actually
not amazing.
What was I going to say before that? Oh, yes.
But you enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it. And I feel like what was interesting about revisiting it is that, whenever you talk about any vampire story, whether it's a teenage thing, a Buffy, a Vampire Diaries, a True Blood, a Sinners, any vampire story, inevitably there's going to be not just metaphors about sex or drugs. I feel like in this movie, it's much more drugs than sex until Justin Kirk and Mary Lou Henner have their moment. Then it's sex.
And Justin Kirk feels like her pointed parody of the over-sexualized
the over-sexualized for sure.
Right.
But she's less interested in, it's basically drugs, but it's kind of, that's not what she's interested in. Yeah. But I was like, vampires are always a metaphor for marginalized people.
Yes.
Because they, whether it's queer people, Jewish people,
they're in the shadows.
They're in the shadows, sinners and the, Black Americans in Jim Crow South. There's always that. And when I first started this film, I was like, how weird to watch a vampire story where that's not the case. And then Wallace Shawn, King of Homeland Security, comes in.
Yeah.
And suddenly the movie's about the Patriot Act and having to delete people from databases so they don't disappear.
Let's
how interesting. What an interesting moment to watch that.
As Dr. Van Helsing, head of Homeland Security. Like that full reveal, like first it's like, oh, here's Wallace Shawn. He's like a New York beat cop or detective. This is interesting casting. And then you realize, oh no, he's
Homeland
Dr.
Security.
Van Helsing working for Homeland Security.
And there's that first scene where he's going to find the body of the pizza guy.
With Ivan Sergei, right.
Yeah, but No, the pizza guy.
Well, Ivan Sergei is his partner, sorry, but Taylor Negron reprising implied the same pizza delivery guy from Fast Times.
Yes. He's also a delivery man in Johnny Dangerously.
Yep. So this is his bit, but Sigourney killed him for real.
Mm-hmm.
R.I.P.
Beheaded him.
And there's such a funny moment between the cop and Wallace Shawn where the cop disdains him for being Homeland Security. He's like, go find a subway map and an explosive and then we'll call you. Fuck off. And I'm like, Jesus.
Well, this movie is very, again, locked into specifically satirizing things like the Patriot Act.
But that's so interesting.
It is. It's just, but it also locks it in.
I completely forgotten about that part of it. And it does give it something.
Yeah.
That, I don't know that she 100% needed to, but I find it really interesting that she wanted to and that she locked in on Homeland Security and the Patriot Act and,
what would vampires fear in modern America? Maybe that's what.
Well, also because, we're following two vampires who from the beginning were like, I have no interest in being a vampire who kills people, who enjoys killing, who likes human blood. I don't want any part of it.
You're seeing the support group of here's the modern progressive vampire that wants to get away from the negative stereotypes.
Yes, including Vlad, the Impaler Tepesh.
Yeah, we should mention Malcolm McDowell plays Vlad the Impaler.
He does. And
who is now a chef.
And he's very funny in it.
He's very good in it. This whole cast is...
That's the thing, but it's just these are vampires.
Overqualified cast or whatever.
Sure.
He's a chef of caramel apples.
The thing is, he's not
New
a
York
chef.
Finest delicacy.
It's the amount of things she was like, what else could he impale? It's caramel apples.
Oh, sure.
It's him impaling caramel apples.
Yeah, for sure.
That and knitting. But it's these are vampires who want to assimilate, who are trying to assimilate and just be as normal and as unobtrusive as they can be. And they still cannot do that. And that is really... That's the metaphor, right? You can never fully assimilate. It's just not possible.
Yeah. And also the sort of the never-ending pursuit of hipness, of trying to stay relevant. It is like a fucking treadmill that is impossible to keep up with.
Well, right. So it's interesting because she seems, it's this weird tension in the film where it's both about relevance and it's about Homeland Security's going to get you.
Right. They're trying to stay forever young, but it's not enough to just biologically be forever young. They need to figure out how to be relevant young women, which is this whole fucking game, this rat race they have to do. And then also, yes, the Homeland Security thing feels like
I mean, I was kind of pleasantly surprised by it. I was like,
me too.
This is actually a very interesting route to go down.
A lot of things in this movie are interesting.
I think this script is like borderline great. Like, I think if I read this, I'd be like, holy shit, this thing is going to be a fucking knockout. And unlike I Can Never Be Your Woman, where you like step back and squint your eyes and you're like, I see the
There's
good ideas
right?
here, but none of them are really executed well. I think in scripting, every idea in this movie is actually executed well.
Obviously, there's not enough money for certain things, but there is a bit of a TV janky vibe.
And I think that's why I kept thinking like, oh, this could have been a series like this.
Yeah.
Like in the, the over explaining in the first 20 minutes of like, here are the rules of this vampire world. Because every vampire world has its own rules.
Like, why is Clueless such an incredible piece of filmmaking, which I would also argue is true for a lot of her earlier movies, and nothing after Clueless has the craft side so nailed down? Is it truly just money and time?
At the time we're recording this, we have not yet done our Loser Ep, which was her last studio film. I think as much as that movie is not as loved as Clueless, I think it has a little more of that. I've seen some of Loser on TV, and it certainly looks more like a real movie. I do think if you want me to unpack this for a moment,
he's sort of like a
the shape of an L on his forehead.
Yeah,
right, finger in his thumb. A lot of it boils down to like time and support. I really do think so, beyond the fact that you're just like, she's got cheaper locations. She probably has like harder outs on cast, especially with a pretty large ensemble with a lot of big names, right? A lot of these people are probably agreeing if it's like, if you can shoot Sigourney out in 2 days, you can get her. So now you have like a kind of slapdash location that you're putting her in, and you're having to run through these things.
Grant's Tomb.
Grant's Tomb. I mean, good bit. I have not been there.
When I love watching whenever fucking DVDs have any sort of BTS footage, not of like, the interviews, but comedy movies being directed. And the Clueless DVD has a fair amount of this. And I remember something about Mary DVD being like, as a comedy movie obsessed kid, like its own mini film school of just watching uncut footage of the director shaping the scene. And as much as you can like write it well and visualize it well and cast the right people, so much of comedy is like such a weird, precise tone thing that it's why these movies need like studio funding. Really, if they're going to be more ambitious than like 3 people talking in a house, if they're going to be more ambitious than like mumblecore shit where you're giving yourself that space and time because the budget is nothing and you just need people to stay in an apartment.
Especially for, not just a movie that requires special effects, but I feel like I was also reading a couple interviews with her about this movie and how she would have loved to have done more flashbacks or like more,
Right. A lot of the
fleshed
what
out.
appeals to her is the
and like period
long
stuff is really expensive. Like
I love when they turn into a bat too.
Oh, so you missed
so you're just sort of like, why no bat?
Why no bat?
Yeah.
That's a fair day.
You just think that's a good bit?
Yeah, and then they're kind of like talking as a
going
bat
mode.
Oh, sure. You didn't like Straw on the Rat?
I love that.
Straw and Rat. Okay.
Very fun.
I was like, that feels Ben coded.
If I may close this loop for a moment, right? You watch her directing like Clueless and this footage of her directing like the wedding scene at the end. And like the actors throwing out ideas and her finessing it over and over again and things being able to play out in a group shot where you're seeing the real timing of 5 people like finding a new moment and riffing on it and finessing it and whatever. That is like the thing that like money gets you, is the time and space to do that, right? And I have been on so many shoots like this where they're like, we know we don't have that time. So this is going to have to be constructed in the edit. We can't spend 5 hours rehearsing this until it's perfect and then get 20 takes of the whole scene playing out in a master. They're like, we just have to start shooting. So then you get into this zone where your shots become tighter and less composed because you just need as many editing pieces as you can possibly get, and you need to start getting them fast, just getting fucking footage. And I think that leads to this feeling of it being like TV, which traditionally was always more constructed like that. You hire pros and you get funny line readings from them and you create the chemistry in the edit later, versus the best comedy movies. You're feeling like it's like fucking old Hollywood musical shit where you're like, I cannot believe the relationship of these 2 people moving and speaking in the same frame at the same time. And like, that is even more than the effects, because I actually think it is impressive what she got visually considering how low this budget was.
Yeah, I mean, the moment when Van Helsing's first kill is pretty horrifying, actually.
Right.
The burned alive vampire, it's pretty good.
I just
Todd
think
Barry?
she made certain
correct.
balances of like, these effects are important.
Mhm.
I want to shoot enough days in New York, even though a lot of it was Detroit.
Night. Yeah, a lot of it was Detroit, but it's also because it's a vampire movie, you got to do it at night.
It's a big cast. She clearly spent money on the wardrobe, all this sort of shit. It's like the big concession she's making is time. And that leads to this feeling kind of clumsy in ways.
Now, the film, as we say, was made for about $10 million or so, because that's kind of what you could get from Lauren Versell, the producer who had made that movie City Island, another kind of low-budgety, New York-y comedy.
That was a mini breakthrough.
Exactly.
Yeah. She also has Red Hour producing this. Stuart Cornfield, her old friend from AFI. Ben Stiller's company at a moment where they were very powerful.
Sure.
I'm almost surprised that they weren't able to get her even like a couple million more to help out, but it also feels like her old friend is doing her a solid.
Let's get Ben on the phone. So he'll be in a good mood the next one. One of the funniest things is, was he at the Emmys or something? Or I forget. No, it was the Oscars. It was when he presented the Oscars. Then he was like tweeting like, you know, like as he always does, like minute by minute through and they were like, "Aren't you at the Oscars?" And he was like, "Go Knicks!" And like, it was like, all right. Alicia Silverstone's in this film. Now she's in Clueless, which is another film
Famously,
that Amy Heckerling made. Heckerling
a lot about her performance in that episode, and we talked about the sort of ramp up of her as the Aerosmith girl. We did not talk larger career because the fall off of Alicia Silverstone is culturally one of the more interesting things we've lived through.
It's a bit of a boomer.
Yes.
A boomer.
Yes.
Obviously, she's in Clueless, and then her next real big role, she is in True Crime in a small role or whatever. Something,
but that I think was shot before.
No, but it's like her next is the '97 double barrel of Batgirl as Batman and Robin, and Excess Baggage, which with Benicio del Toro being very normal.
She like immediately after Clueless signs, I think it was a 3-picture, $6 million deal with Paramount, where they were like, we are in the Alicia Silverstone business. Or was it with, I think it was with Sony, actually.
Excess Baggage, I can tell you, is certainly a film from the great people at Columbia Pictures owned by Sony.
I think that was the first of what was supposed to be her 3-picture deal, but there was essentially a bidding war.
She had a company called First Kiss. That was the label.
Like, Clueless is so huge, and people were even like, is she going to like get an Oscar nomination?
Sure, she deserved one.
And she very specifically did not
office?
Do the TV show because she was like, I'm going to do other things.
Right.
Yeah.
She signs this deal. She's got 3 movies, and they're like, we're giving you autonomy here. Like, you are a producer on these films, pick your material, cast them. Then Batgirl comes up, which at that moment probably seems like, well, no shit. They want me to be in a Batman movie? I should fucking do that. So that leapfrogs to her next project. And then her first thing in the Columbia deal is Excess Baggage, where she's like, I want Benicio del Toro. I'm picking the director. They talk about that the whole movie is like her selecting the things on the soundtrack. This is supposed to be the real moment of like, Alicia Silverstone builds a movie for herself and her taste, and it is just kind of like completely ignored.
It's an interesting movie. It's not bad, in my opinion. It's weird, and Del Toro is really, really weird in it. Like,
they're an odd
Usual
coupling.
Suspects era Del Toro as like the
Again,
sexy
here's a
love
person
interest.
who's actually weirder than we thought.
Yeah,
exactly.
but for like
then
Batman and Robin makes her look kind of silly. More than anything, people are like, this is embarrassing.
I mean, Batgirl's not a very
it's not
rich role.
But she's, I mean,
with.
she's abominable in that movie.
And people
I love
are kind
Alicia
of like
Silverstone.
laughing at her. Like,
people
she
are
looks
laughing at her, and people are mean and sexist to her, like 100%. She is also so fucking bad in that movie. It's kind of crazy because you're like,
what happened?
You're clearly a talented performer.
Right. Character is
and I get that this is a circus,
yes.
And no one's good in that movie. Now everyone says Uma and Arnold are good in it, and I can kind of go with them in that. But certainly George and Alicia and Chris O'Donnell, but especially George Clooney and Alicia Silverstone, just the line deliveries where they just kind of feel like they're like, did I get that right? And Schumacher's like, I don't know. Let's keep going. Like, you know, like on to the next crazy set. You
I would also say like Chris O'Donnell at least like wears the suit well. Like he understands how to be the action figure.
He has a sense of Robin more than the other two.
I think it is like the reason Alicia Silverstone is dinged harder by Batman and Robin than anyone else is it's a little close to what we were talking about of like when Travolta fucks up, where you're like, you look silly. How do you not have enough self-awareness to sort of like protect yourself from this?
But it's
And
also
then-
a horrible role.
Absolutely.
I mean, like,
But then it's just immediately followed up by like, okay, but here is her movie.
sure.
And people go, and
But then-
Columbia never cashes in the other two movies in her deal.
No, but I will always go to the mat for Blast from the Past.
A fun movie.
Our movie I really like that's kind of also like salty sweet and interesting with Brendan Fraser. I think that movie's fun.
An incredible premise for a movie, and a premise that only could have worked in the exact year they made the movie.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it in 20 plus years.
I've rewatched it recently. It is okay.
She's in the Kenneth Branagh Love Slavers Lost, which is basically just ignored. Doesn't really make any money at all, and that's it.
She does
It's
The Graduate on
over.
Broadway.
Sure, but the boring role,
Totally.
Elaine?
the girl,
Yeah,
Yeah, and then NBC's
the mom.
like, we've got Alicia Silverstone. We're putting her on TV, and it still felt
Mismatch.
like, oh, that's someone who was a movie star. That's
dude,
kind of a big deal.
I was pumped for Mismatch.
Yeah.
It wasn't just that it
You
was
were
her; it was Darren Stone created it.
Right.
Oh,
No,
yes.
dude, I was way pumped because
Yeah.
I was like,
It was one of the most hyped
She's-
shows that fall.
right, and it's like Silverstone is that kind of star where in the early 2000s you were like, well, they
And was she playing a matchmaker?
Of course she
so
was.
She's
Of course she was.
so it's Emma again.
exactly the
felt
whole
like
tone
a
felt
layup.
right, and that
Yes.
show just kind of
It
stayed.
just didn't work.
Yeah.
Right. And she now, like, she
Then
consistently
it's over.
pops up in things in little parts.
But I mean, it's like the idea of her leading a movie
Totally. Gone.
is gone.
When they
like
had-
she pops up in Beauty Shop, the Great Beauty Shop,
Yeah, a strange performance.
funny, strange things.
She's like Diane Keaton's daughter in the book club movies. She's one
Oh my
of their
god, she
daughters.
is.
and I remember she's in
That's a bad
The
role,
Killing
too.
of a Sacred Deer,
Right.
the Lanthimos movie, and in like a small role. She's Barry Keoghan's mom in it. And when I interviewed Yorgos for that movie, I was like, Alicia Silverstone. He was like, yeah, I love her. Clueless. Like, I love Alicia. Why doesn't anyone use her? Like, it was great to work with her.
But more often, it's
But
like
it was
she
almost like this Greek pervert had to like appear and be like, y'all like Clueless? Is Alicia Silverstone? Does anyone have a number for
but, like,
her?
she got zero bump from
No,
that.
because it's not a big role.
Right. And like, I think more of shit where it's like she was the replacement mom in Diary of a Wimpy Kid 3.
You know
Like
what?
after the original cast left.
God bless Yorgos. She's in his new movie,
Begonia?
great.
Begonia.
Great.
Begonia.
And she is also, I don't know that you taped your Clueless episode before the Clueless TV show was announced. That she is going
know
to be
what?
in.
No, but
It
that
was
has
announced,
been announced.
but-
yeah.
2 days after we
Yes.
recorded our episode.
Dude, did you know that the cast of Begonia is Emma Stone and Jesse Plemons, Alicia Silverstone, and Stavi?
I did
Oh.
know that.
That's crazy.
Damn.
Yeah, because people
Like
are...
Yorgos was like, just get me
Another
who's the nearest
Greek pervert?
king.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There is,
exactly.
there is a corner of the internet that is really hyped on the idea of Stavi being a supporting actor candidate.
In a Yorgos movie,
It's
like,
possible.
I could see magic there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He might just like nail it.
Honestly,
also,
he's one of our best
He
comedians.
kind of is.
he's great. I think he's basically
Him
kind of
swinging into
undeniable.
Doughboys and being like, let's talk like nefarious fat guy shit, guys, and then being like, let's do it. You know, like what kind of bad behaviors can we get into
Did
here?
you guys hear him on WTF as well?
I know I should listen.
He locked the gates and just basically talked about politics for like 40 straight minutes at the end of the episode and was so fucking smart.
Well, he is very smart about that
Yes.
stuff. IMO.
What
She's done a lot of theater,
Yes.
Alicia.
Right.
She's really good in this.
she
I
is
think she's really good
She's
in
good.
this.
really
She's,
good in
in
this.
my opinion, she's really doing a lot of the Clueless stuff. The little mouth tug that she does, so
Yeah.
cute. Like, and the kind of like sweet with a little
Just like
salty, like.
Curly hair, Clueless.
What do you think of the makeup?
What do I think of the
So
makeup?
the vampires
looking
in this
right
movie
across.
got the eyeshadow. on.
Now that
The
of course
makeup?
is an
You
Amy
mean, like-
Heckerling staple. Amy Heckerling always has the raccoon eyes.
Well, I will. Yeah, that's true. Right. That's one of her things. But it does feel very like, okay, so these are the vampires. We're going to like put very intense eyeliner on them.
and
Right.
sometimes,
But I will say, like, of that
looks a little
era,
silly.
like, I was putting a lot of eyeliner on then. So I feel like it was also just.
but I'm
like,
guessing you look better than Todd Barry. No offense to old Todd.
Well, thank you
Barry.
so much.
but don't we once again think that we're in an exact midpoint of like you're 10% over it being realistic, but 20% under it being funny exaggeration,
Sure.
where
I
it
mean-
just sort of maybe looks a little sloppy.
I mean, yeah, definitely. Like, it's smeared. It's not quite there. But that's kind of what. Can I ask you guys? Have you done over your many, many years, how many other vampire movies have you done?
Really good question, actually. Not
How many?
that many.
I mean, every episode's a Nosferatu.
Well, we did the
We've covered-
Twilight franchise on Patreon.
We did,
Okay.
and we have covered John
But as
Carpenter's
aforementioned, those are not
vampires.
vampires. John Carpenter's
vampires.
Okay, that
That's
counts.
one. That counts.
But for how sturdy a franchise this is, especially a franchise, a
sturdy notion.
mythos.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, they're so...
Well, what are the big vampire things we might have done? Let's see. We bought a zoo. Was that vampire? Okay.
We haven't done Neil Jordan. We haven't done Coppola. We haven't done Jarmusch.
No.
We haven't done Herzog.
Herzog.
Like, I'm thinking of...
But I'm like, did you guys, like, if you, as much as you liked monsters or any, I don't know if you were monster boys, were you vampire boys?
Big time monster boy.
But
Big
you're
time
not as
monster
big a
boy.
vampire boy.
I was going to say,
you like
vampires
the
were
I'm a
always-
monster,
Like a
not
Frank,
the,
like a
I'm
Frank,
a
like the thing, or like
almost
King
all of them.
Kong kind of deal.
I'd say as a child, I kind of, my mind sparked the most at Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Okay,
That was very big for me, but I also think like Scooby-Doo as a gateway into the monster
so like
archetypes.
the ghosts.
Yeah, but also like Frankenstein's mummies, zombies, and then I was watching
Jesus,
the old
what are we in the
movies.
Monster Mash? What's going on here?
It was
Near
a
Dark.
graveyard.
Near
Oh,
Dark,
Near Dark.
a great
Good call.
vampire movie.
Good call.
Another revisionist vampire
Yeah.
film.
Yes. But I was really into the classical monster types, both the funny versions and the older, quote unquote scary ones, but the ones that were not modern horror films. Vampires just always interested me less. And it is funny that every time I hear a director I like, and I had this exact feeling when Sinners got announced.
Isn't Dark Shadows a vampire?
Yeah.
There you go.
Another good call.
Tim Burton.
Every time a director I like announces they're doing a vampire movie, I'm like, what is it with vampires? Most of the time, I enjoy it. And yet, I'm
But it's
never
just
amped
not
at the
your
idea.
Yeah,
And like, I saw Sinners and I was like, fuck, there's still juice in this vampire thing. There's stuff you can do with it. And yet, I'm sure the next time someone I like announces a vampire movie, I will go, why again? Why another one?
Why do you not like my movie?
All the movies we listed, I basically like. And I'm like, as long as there was some personal point of view, like Only Lovers Left Alive is one of my favorite movies of that
so good.
awesome
decade.
movie.
It's so good.
Only Lovers Left Alive is kind of the artier Vamps.
They're
Because it's
very
also
similar.
like, we've lived through so many years
Yeah.
of society. Here we are just kind of chilling. What do we do with ourselves?
I think
America's getting weird.
I think his metaphor in that movie is more kind of like hipsters not being able to reckon with the fact that they're still alive, right? It's sort of like that movie's about
old
like
junkies kind of being like,
Right.
geez, we made it. And now we like live in Detroit and like world's going to shit. And
There's like elements of that, in, like Interview with Vampire, like that kind of thing.
Sure.
Or like, I definitely remember when I first,
I got to watch that show.
oh,
Everyone's
it's-
telling me
it's
that
good.
show is so good.
It's good, and I mean the thing that
And I hear it's a little horny.
it's very David.
Anne Rice is Interview with
David?
the Vampire. I know.
David?
I know.
A little horny.
Pump your brakes.
A-
I hear
a
it's a
little-
little horned up.
It is fucking
Yes.
sex wall to wall,
Great.
wall to wall, dicks on dicks, man.
Dicks on dicks. I
dicks
need
on
them on
dicks.
top of each other, like a little sandwich.
no docking, just stacking.
No
Yeah.
Big Mac, moist maker.
But
there.
that
You
one-
want Jenga towers?
Yeah.
Does that ever happen?
Like Jenga towers?
dick
Is that,
towers?
is
Sure.
that like a sex act where people
Let's
go to a
do
sex party and just go like, how many dicks can we stack on
Yeah,
top of
let's
each
do
other?
a Jenga thing. But then you're going to
Let's
need
get
like
some step
ladders and
stools.
step
Yeah, it's a
stools.
complicated
Yeah,
system.
right.
Are you talking horizontally or vertically?
Who knows?
I'm talking
Let's
vertically.
play around.
Oh, I was talking. See, my brain went to horizontally, so we've got a lot of different.
That
ways
I
we can
feel
go.
like is more like building a rope bridge, though, isn't it? Like sort of slat by slat.
Oh boy.
If you're going horizontally, I think Jenga tower has to be vertically. And it's the same game of like how many guys can stack on top of each other.
I will
before
say the
everyone
mechanics
falls.
have rapidly run away from me.
Is
I
there-
feel fully in control.
But
of
I
what
will
I'm
say
saying.
Sam Raimi
Interview?
never made one. I'm just looking at all our vampire movies.
The other one, Thirst, Park Chan.
Oh, that's another good one.
Mhm. I love vampires. I've long loved vampires.
Who's your favorite?
Well, I mean, I guess
Dracula.
no, I wasn't a Dracula girl.
Angel.
I did not like Angel. I
Rude.
liked Spike better than Angel.
Angel solves crimes in LA. Maybe check
He
in
does
with that.
solve crime,
Wolfram
but no,
Hart.
he took over a law firm. It's great.
Yep.
Actually, a vampire I was thinking of a lot
Who?
during Vamps is Harmony, the
Love
blonde
Harmony.
vampire from
Of course.
Buffy and Angel. She's
Got a Vamps. You're right. She's very
Vamps. There's like really. I
yes.
actually rewatched an Angel
The
episode
great
where she
Mercedes McNabb.
Mercedes McNabb, and she's working as Angel's like receptionist, and she has like a little montage in the morning where she's getting ready and brushing her fangs and like warming up the rat blood, and it's very Vamps.
Oh, I have to swing in here for a moment. Hotel Transylvania trilogy. As
Oh,
well.
interesting.
there we
That had
go.
vampires in it?
Trilogy. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
And that is a trilogy, and that is canon, and you can mark that down, and you can put it right in the book.
Yeah, no, it's great. And vampires always like very much interested me. Definitely, they were sexy in a way where it's like, well, they're not having sex. Well, they're having sex. It's penetrative. It's interesting.
Who is your vampire? Is it Buffy?
It's got to be Buffy. I think it's definitely Buffy.
Was that your activation? Like, do you feel like you were naturally inclined towards vampires as a child and Buffy was the best version of that? Or was that when you first locked in?
That's when I first looked into actually, I was going to say that was when I first walked into like narrative TV being a thing that I really fell for. But actually that was Hey Arnold, which got a shout out in this film in a slightly rude way. But I love a Hey Arnold shout out.
Just like Jake Fogelness gets a fucking drive-by in this movie.
Look, some of these
must be friends with someone,
that
right?
Feels really pointed.
Yes. But all of these references feel like, right, the first draft of the script is 2005.
Yes, like we're making fun of Talking Head shows.
But there's also, something that's always transgressive about vampires. So one of my very best college friends is a drag performer in Brooklyn. I think I probably shouted her on Showgirls because that was her favorite. The wonderful Miss Malice. And every January, if you're in Brooklyn, you should go to their Vamp themed show. Every January for their birthday.
Not a Vamps themed show.
Not a Vamps, a vampire themed show. Vampires. Every year they do it. Every year they find new shit to do. There's, this year there was definitely more Nosferatu stuff. She likes doing vampire lovers, like very classic 60s, like Ingrid Pitt, like vampires, because there's that whole genre. There was a really good Lost Boys this year, and it was just the kind of thing where being in this room full of like, very like only like queer trans people who are just like vampires are a thing. They live in the dark. They are the thing that people are afraid of. Like, so for that room, it was like, this is queer coded in a way that we all cottoned onto as kids. I guess I was closeted as a kid. I just don't even think of it that way. But for me, that's not what it was really about. It was more like, this story is so interesting and intricate, and I liked learning the rules of the Buffy vampire world. So I always am interested in how the rules of vampires shift between depictions.
And if someone finds a new
thing to do, like, the idea that a vampire, like all the vampires one vampire sired will die if the sire dies is an older thing. But the vamp version is very interesting of the, like, you will age back to the age you were.
Right.
And if you are too old, you will die. And I was like, that is a really interesting twist on something I have seen many times. And the other thing about, not to do my own David bullet points where I'm like, and here are all my thoughts.
Do it.
One thing I find very interesting about Vamps, and something I was really trying to think about, and I don't think I can think of another example, and I'm sure someone listening to this will find it. I cannot think of another vampire thing where the primary love story is a platonic soulmates thing. Because usually vampires are very tortured lovers over time. And it's like we are this, like Only Lovers Left Alive is like, we are this couple, we have stayed together. The Hunger is very that. Another great movie.
Love that movie.
Interview with the Vampire, like all these great, like very tortured lovers over decades.
Yes.
And this, or there's a mortal and a not mortal, like Twilight Buffy. Mm-hmm. But the platonic, like, we are roommates and we've been hanging out for 20 years having a good time, is very different.
Yeah.
And cute. Here's my Vamps
They're
question.
Very cute.
Who makes a stem? How do the stems get made?
Well, that's where I'm just like, if we had a TV show, we could get into that.
Sure. We could get into
that. Because the movie does
flashback.
not, correct me if I'm wrong, attempt to explain
let's do some of the table setting of the story, because we've been talking around different aspects of the
sure. I mean, I was going to do more of the dossier, but that's fine.
We'll circle back to that. Yeah. So these two women been living in a St. Mark's Place apartment for 20 years.
Goody
played by Alicia Silverstone and
native New Yorker.
Yes, and Stacy, played by Kristen Ritter.
Who Goody often is dressed in Heckerling outfits.
Yes,
we've talked
Goody's
about
from the 1840s.
Heckerling's sort of like modified Charlie Chaplin couture that you see her doing behind the scenes a lot. Silverstone does like a lot of variations on that. They have been vampire roommate friends for 20 years. They live a very simpatico sort of tandem life where they go out every night and try to enjoy themselves, and but as we were saying, are kind of starting to feel the wear of having to keep up with these people. Why is the technology changing? Why are the trends changing? It's too hard to keep this all going. I don't know if you folks caught this, but the first scene where they go to a bar, I think the introduction of Renfield, the band that's playing is Molly Israel's band.
Sure. No,
daughter of Amy Heckerling.
That's fun.
Yes.
That's cute. And I also love that Renfield is their gay best friend.
Yes.
The great Zach Orth.
The great Zach Orth.
Yeah.
That was
great Zach Orth.
I
said he was great.
I know, but I'm building on that. I'm co-signing it.
Or doubling down. He's great.
He's 3 times great.
Did you get that, Ben?
Look. Yeah, he is
It's
great.
very
the
on
look
point.
with the hair?
Yeah.
Oh, it was
the
tough.
swoopy hair.
The,
the
vague Ed
Bieber
Hardy
hair.
thing.
Oh, yes. Yes,
Yeah.
for sure.
Which I feel like was very, LA was swamped by Ed Hardy at that time.
Sigourney Weaver is the one who turned them. They have an uneasy relationship with her.
Yes.
Her assistant guy is Todd Barry.
Yeah. Who very funny.
You wish there was more of him.
Exactly. Todd Barry as a vampire is a good bit, and there's not enough of
money in the bank. He's introduced with fangs, and you're like, holy shit, give me this all day. But they have an uneasy relationship with her. They have found their sort of vampire chosen family in the support group. People like Vlad the Impaler.
Who don't want to feed off animals, who are like, we will stick straws in rats and be exterminators at night.
We found a more humane way to live.
Blood Anonymous.
Oh, no, it's Sanguine Anonymous.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Right.
And they work as late night janitors so that they can have access to rats, to dead rats.
You know what? Pretty solid.
There's plausibility everywhere.
Like
here.
all of this is like these
checks out.
This is vampire shit you like, where it's like any vampire movie getting into what are the structures of their life? What are the systems they have put in place to be able to like exist and sort of slip by?
I mean, and I feel like for especially a comedic vampire thing, it's like very What We Do in the Shadows, where it's like, and they are just living life in Staten Island, and occasionally they'll go to the DMV, and that's just what they're doing.
The brass tacks of how you stay a vampire. Kristen Ritter meets Dan Stevens, a handsome young man.
Yep.
This is the tail end of his foppish era. Like this.
No, but this is like peak Downton.
Well, I was gonna say.
So Downton starts in 2010. Like,
and it's just,
and he's left it by 2012.
I just think every movie after this, there was the sort of guest thing of like, fuck, that's Dan Stevens. He changed his look.
So The Guest is 2014. One of the hottest screen performances of my lifetime. And I like Dan Stevens, and I think he's been good in other stuff. But The Guest was kind of one of those things where you're like, oh, a colossal movie star has arrived, right?
But I feel like if more people had seen this film, they would have been like, oh, and he's also a freak. Like, why is he's not really allowed to be as much of a freak in this one? That's not his role. But the fact that he's in it at all is kind of nuts.
I think he has great taste.
I do too, and I think he's really good in this.
The fact that he chose to do it,
this feels like
really
him
interesting.
Doing a funny mocking of how he was perceived from Downton.
Sure,
right?
Yeah.
Whereas
he's
after
like this
this
romantic lead with the blue eyes.
Yes. And then after this, it's like, no, I'm zagging so fucking hard. I'm gonna like reintroduce myself, and I'm gonna look different, and I'm gonna have a jawline.
So you're talking about Beauty and the Beast, yeah?
And I'm gonna play maniacs. Yes, of course.
Maniac.
He is the beast.
He is the beast.
We cannot deny he's the beast.
I think he basically always hits now, but it feels like he would not even let himself do something like this today. That is like conjuring too much how he was originally perceived.
Sure, but I mean, at least it's like he's surrounded by batshittery. Like his father is Wallace Shawn, the head of Homeland Security.
100% why he wanted to do it.
Yeah.
Like this movie's insane, and I get to be funny.
Yes.
Right.
And he's very charming in this.
So he and Kristen Ritter's characters fall in love.
Right. He is unfortunately
star-crossed, classic.
The son of Homeland Security Van Helsing. And another thing I love throughout these Heckerling movies is they will set up some sort of dynamic, and you're like, oh, fuck. So the whole movie is going to be keeping the two of them apart until the very end. I like that basically 45 minutes in, he confronts her.
Yes.
She's caught.
Reveals herself, and then they just start to deal with it.
Right.
Yes.
And it's like always more interesting when the conflict isn't like external forced things keeping them apart. It's like, what are the struggles of how to be together?
Well, it's funny when she's like, so what? Do you want a girlfriend you can go hiking with? You want to like try new restaurants? Like, I'm not going to be that. And he's like, I don't need to do that. Like, I kind of love these, like, I think actually we are compatible in this way. It's not just that I like you. I don't need to go hiking. It's a very funny thing to say.
The core tension of this movie that kicks in is Weaver's getting increasingly out of control.
Weaver is a monster.
She's a monster, and she keeps fucking
and she's sloppy.
She's sloppy. She keeps eating people. She's giving vampires a bad name. Page 6 is all over it. Right?
Yes.
But also Kristen Ritter gets pregnant.
Which is so interesting. Like, again,
something that's kind of not allowed in vampire logic, and they don't address it for a while, but then they do address it in an interesting way.
I actually think, I didn't remember how the mechanics of it worked, because I was like, is this like a Twilight thing where it's just like, well, she's special, so that's what happened? I kind of like that Malcolm McDowell Vlad, as he's poking the apples, is just like, yeah, she's pregnant and it won't survive because it can't, so give her a week.
Yeah, it'll within a month it's gone.
That just like vampires can get pregnant, but it's not. We can't sustain life, so it's just not going to happen. So I was like, oh, that's actually just a very elegant way of dealing with it.
Now, Alicia Silverstone has been lying to Kristen Ritter. She's the one who turned her.
Stacy.
Yes.
Perfect 90s name.
And
or
Goody
80s name,
told Stacy that she was basically the same age as her.
But like clearly is not.
Has been alive since the 1800s?
1840s.
She's turned in the 1840s.
But I don't think she turned.
She did not turn Stacy, no.
Oh, sorry.
So Cicerus turned both of them.
Yes.
But it's like basically just to, what was it? There's like a very funny line where she's trying to get them to dispose of her bodies. And Stacy just goes like, but we're only good for like trying stuff on and like clerical work. Like that's, we are your assistants. Like that's kind of the vibe.
A lot of good lines.
But basically, I mean, there's even a line like towards the very end where, we'll get to and I'll cry, where Goody is like, I was going to walk into the sun before you got turned. Like I was pretty much done, but now we've had a great 20 years. But it's like she got a friend is what happened with that.
It's part of like what I like about Only Lovers Left Alive and a lot of the vampire stuff that I like the most is like the curse of immortality and getting to this point where you're just like, I kind of wish I could die. This is unnatural. I have like had to live through too much and lose too many people and also have like whatever hedonistic pleasures and joys I could like indulge in from a life without consequences.
Yeah.
I've run through them. What's left?
And the interesting thing, I feel like one reason why I actually also don't love the scene that opened this podcast, where, she gets mad at the blog. And, we are famously critics in the room. But where she gets frustrated about the blogs, not that I disagree with the sentiment at all. And actually, the more I thought about it, the more I was like, yeah, no, maybe I also will shuffle off this mortal coil if I don't have to like check my phone ever again. But I think I am glad that that's not the only motivation for her being like, it's okay if I die. Because that's not enough.
No.
Right. That's a bit of a huge bummer.
Because also, like at that point, she's also, we haven't even, God, I'm glad that you are, down to talk for way too long about so many things. Because we haven't even talked about Richard Lewis as the love of her life.
We'll get to Richard Lewis.
Yes.
We'll get to.
Okay. Yes. We'll get to. All right.
But like my grandmother of some age called during this episode, right? A lot of my life is now centered around me helping her with devices. And it will often be this wild oscillation between like, this is incredible. Thank God. This is amazing. I can't imagine having lived this long without the resource of being able to watch like any movie at any time in my bed on a thing the size of like a piece of paper, right?
Right.
And the other half the time, she will say things to me like, I was never supposed to live this long. I can't learn all these things.
Right. Like,
what am I supposed to do? Why is this no longer a thing I can solve in a phone call or a letter? Why do I need to sign up for more stuff? Right. And I think it's more like
a fair feeling.
There was that feeling of like Alicia Silverstone's character is secretly 100+ years older, right?
And she's much older than the other one. And one thing I like too is that it's not like she's very nostalgic for the time when she was turned, which we find out, she was brewing cholera, and it was like a bad time.
A horrible time to be a poor person in New York, which
like
I guess
she's probably
was.
Like, and that her go-to dressing style is not that. It's actually the 20s when it seems like she was happiest, when like things changed, electricity happened, people were out having fun, and she was like, that's what she's nostalgic for. And also the movies, she's a cinephile in this.
It's the very
in a way that's very Heckerling, right? So it's not that she was always resistant to change.
No.
It's that she enjoyed the change she got, and then it just kept happening.
Well, so Kristen Ritter inside her coffin has photos of like late 80s, early 90s pinup boyfriends, right? She's got Michael J. Fox and shit inside her coffin.
Right. Her taste has remained, static to that.
It's the moment she was turned, right? And it's basically like that feeling of this kind of point in a person's life in between your 20s and your 30s where you're like, I'm out of the control of childhood. And there's a level of responsibilities have not really kicked in. And is my life mostly centered around like getting drunk and going out with friends and having dinner and having fun and all this sort of shit, which is what both of them kind of yearn for, right? More than a specific era of history, it's the point in time where they felt that way for the first time, which for Alicia Silverstone, because her lifespan is so much longer, and she was born into a culture that never allowed people to have an era like that it makes sense that the 20s would have been the first time that was basically like the equivalent of her being 26 and also culture kind of exploding for the first time. And she's nostalgic for feeling that way for the first time, in the same way that Kristen Ritter is about like 1992. And Alicia Silverstone has been lying about them being on the same timeline and pretending they're in the same place. Because as you said, basically, finding someone else she can relate to this hard in a platonic way gave her the motivation to be like, I guess it is still fun to be alive. I want to do this, but we have to be on the exact same page about all of this shit. And when Kristen Ritter gets pregnant and she realizes the baby is going to sort of like destroy itself, she realizes there's like a two birds with one stone solution, which is I need to kill Sigourney to sever the stem, which will solve her
It'll
like crime
help her.
spree.
It'll free her.
It will free her.
Kristen Ritter, you know.
They'll
but
revert
it
back
will-
to the
That's the thing.
age they would have been if
Right.
they had kept aging.
It will be
Right.
the end of me.
So Kristen Ritter is going to go from 20 to 40, and
Right.
Alicia
She turns 40 in this
Silverstone-
movie, which is also like very specific that she is turning 40 and that when she finds out she's pregnant. That's also such a cute little scene. I feel like Kristen plays it so well too. And so does Alicia, because she said it being like, oh, I talked to Vlad and you're just pregnant and it'll be fine. And
I'm
she's
just
so
tell-
excited. And she's
Yeah.
like, oh shit, you want the baby. And I just didn't even consider that might be something you'd want. And she's like, well, I'm 40. When am I going to get another chance? Like, that's the reason.
Yeah, it's a good line. And Alicia Silverstone like does the math and is like, I can solve this, but the price of it is I will revert to my real age, which will be dead. It is basically a suicide mission. She has to sacrifice herself to this, unknowing to everyone else around her. She's not letting Kristen Ritter know because Kristen Ritter thinks that she's going to turn 40 as well. I always kind of like this dynamic of two characters thinking they're on the same page about something and one person just sort of quietly, stoically suffering in advance of like, I'm ready to do this and I don't want them to know that I'm doing this for them because they will try to talk me out of it.
And I feel like, Stacey kind of does suspect it that, they're not quite the same age because
How
Goody's
could she
references
not?
are not,
Right.
with it. She loves a drop ways too much, even though, you can
And
only say
there's the
Keira Knightley
really-
wore it for so long.
She
before.
always claims that she learned something from the History Channel.
And
And there's
the
the
thing
really
is, like,
great gag of every
yes.
time I watch the History Channel, it was just about Hitler.
That is
which is
so
what the History
true.
Channel is.
But in this
It is still true. It was that's I was so glad you wrote because I was like, that bit is
a
not
great
that
bit.
great until that
Great
line.
bit. Yeah,
and the
exactly.
the early step of the bit, which also feels very Heckerling, is like the way her old timiness kicks in is she just wants to stop in random corners in New York City and
And be like,
explain
Remember when it was
right,
this?
there used
these
to be this
businesses used to
here.
be.
Yeah, right.
which is like I think how like a lifelong like a New Yorker like Amy Heckerling feels. It's certainly how you and I feel.
Absolutely.
And talk
My
all
favorite
the
thing to
fucking
do
time.
is to
Right.
be like, there used to be like a dentist office there. And it's like, who fucking cares, David?
And
Shut
like,
up.
right, she's doing the 1920s version of
Right.
that, and Christopher's like, "How do you know this?" And she goes like, "History Channel."
Yeah.
As
Ben,
if History Channel
those
goes
parts
through
tough for you,
every.
Ben?
what do you want to say,
It
Benny?
just doesn't seem like she was very savvy when it comes to real estate. Because if you've been around that long, get
Why are you in
yourself-
that apartment?
Be off the friggin' park or something. Come on.
Maybe she
Really
wants to
true.
be in the thick of it in St. Mark's Place or whatever.
Or even, I just love the eternal life thing of like you deposit a penny
And
you're-
then suddenly,
and
yeah.
then like 100 years later, you're like super rich.
I feel like it's very like Interview with the Vampire is kind of like that, where they're like, we have figured it out. Now we own shit.
But I
it's
think
true.
part
She
of
has
them-
always been kind of like middle income. It seems like she's never amassed great
they're
wealth.
working as like exterminators.
Yes.
If anything,
No.
she should have
You're making good money.
She should have made it like some investments. Put together
do
a
think
portfolio.
That is a purposeful statement, though, Ben, because it's like the whole point is they are relishing being stuck in a stage before you need to start to make future decisions.
Oh, that's interesting.
In
Okay.
that way,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
it's that span of years where you're just like, at one point, am I told I need to start figuring shit out? And they are stuck in like decades of that's for later.
Also,
Yeah.
that's one thing that I was thinking about when, she does her little blog rant and then she very shortly thereafter realizes that she's going to have to die if Stacey's going to like be happy and whatever. Is that, for me, I was looking at it being like, but you did just have like a very fulfilling moment where you got your ex-boyfriend who's now, I will say a hunky ACLU lawyer who is, down and ready to help. And you got all these people.
You're saying Richard Lewis now is hunky.
I think in Vamps.
Well, in
I think,
2012,
right?
he is now.
I mean,
a
in
court.
He's
I know
hunkier
he's
in
now
the
no
present
longer
timeline
with
than
us.
he is in that wig in the 60s.
Well, the wig is.
I just
Again,
like, and I also like,
it's
I
not.
love.
It's not a major studio.
I just
wig.
love that guy played by Richard Lewis is the object of Alicia Silverstone's like utter.
Another
it's
thing
a
that
great
feels very,
concept.
Very
Heckerling.
Very
Heckerling.
Heckerling.
It's
If you
so
look at the
good.
men of Heckerling's life, and we have not acknowledged, she also had a very long relationship with Bronson Pinchot in the 90s.
Sure.
Richard Lewis, it makes
It's
sense
perfect.
that
It's
you're
perfect.
like, Amy Heckerling, when she was 12, probably saw him do stand-up on late night and was like, that is my greatest crush of all
Yep.
time.
Richard
And
That
he
is my
plays it pretty
ultimate
straight.
villain.
The thing, right, that I like about Richard Lewis, I like pretty much everything about Richard Lewis, but in this movie is that he's like, I'm playing it as a kind of a tired, sad guy. Like,
He's
I'm
an-
not
he's an old
going
hippie.
to
He's
go
an aged
the dark
hippie.
complaining
all
thing.
right. Like,
Right.
Richard Lewis, like, no, he's quite locked in being not that funny.
And Richard Lewis also was incredibly good at just maintaining his look, right? Like, you even watch the final season of Curb where he is like so close to death, almost was not on the final season and dies like before it even premieres. And you're like, man, he for 70 years kept the hairstyle
He likes what he likes.
and
He
the all
got it.
black outfits and the attitude, like in this sort of vampiric way.
All right.
I
Um,
mean,
Nicely done.
he's like a nightclub comic forever, right? Do you like Richard Lewis, Ben? You're
I
making
do.
a little face.
Yeah. I think the thing for me when I remember that this is the way the movie was going is that I had a moment where I was like, but goody, you just found another gear. Like, this is something you can help people. Like, you change people's mind. You like,
sure.
you connect people. And so I had a minute where I was like, oh, do you really have to, like, it's not all just.
It
bull.
comes
but
a
it's a
little
sacrifice.
bit out of nowhere
Yeah.
when she starts talking about her kids and stuff.
Well, that
Not out of nowhere, because there's the scene where she like looks at old pictures and stuff. It's
Yeah.
layered it, but
but
like
I just like that backstory is so good. I think.
But
Yeah.
exactly, it's
Yeah.
just resonant anyway.
It's kind of weird that she's telling Dr. Van Helsing
Why not?
about it.
He's a nice man.
She has to win him
Wallace
over.
Shawn.
Was he a nice man before
Well,
that
he's
scene?
interested in her in a way that most aren't, right? Because
Right.
he actually cares about vampires.
Sure. And he is like, here's a new bit of lore I didn't know.
Here's a great runner in this movie.
And he's learning to be sympathetic to them as
Yeah.
she
She
learns
changes
to
hearts
be.
and minds.
Other than with Sigourney Weaver, this movie constantly represents the idea that like any complicated dynamic can be worked out through a very good conversation, right?
Yeah, sure.
And like in a way that doesn't feel like sloppy, like whatever, wave it off screenwriting. It's like, can she appeal to Dr. Van Helsing as a person and get her to like consider her as a person rather than as like an abstract enemy, in the same way that like Dan Stevens and Kristen Ritter can figure it out. And the Richard Lewis thing, when he's introduced, they're like exterminating at a hospital where his wife, Mary Lou Henner, is like in the latest stages of cancer, and Alicia Silverstone clocks him. This was like her greatest boyfriend ever, her like political radical college student boyfriend from the 70s, who she had to dump because she was starting to get to the point. I think she says it's 7 years.
It's like after 7 years, I have to acknowledge I'm not aging, and that
And that
what
he
comes
wanted
next.
he wanted a family and she couldn't do
Right.
that. Which also, like, there's a lot of stuff about motherhood in here too.
Yes.
In a
But
way that
it kind
vampire
of
stuff
doesn't
doesn't
make
always.
sense that she wouldn't know the deal with pregnancy. You'd think it would have come up at some
Sure.
point, but whatever, it doesn't matter.
Richard Lewis sees her, is like, how is this possible? And she says like, oh, what are you talking about? And then very quickly creates the cover story
I
of
feel
like,
like that must be a basic cover story for them. Is like,
I must
if
be the
someone
daughter.
recognizes
daughter.
me, I'm the daughter. Right.
Right. And I'm like, okay, so the movie's going to be 90 minutes of her lying and pretending that she's the daughter. And then once again, the conversation comes much earlier than you would expect,
They dispense with it pretty quickly.
where she's like, I'm just going to fucking own up to you. He's smart enough to figure it out,
Well,
much
she
in the
also has
same
to
way that Dan
stop,
Stevens was.
She stops a robbery and
Yep.
and there's no way to.
And she says, I could like hypnotize you. I think you deserve better. They have this really interesting emotional conversation about like why she had to leave him and said, you deserve to meet someone else.
And did you meet someone amazing? And he said, yeah, I did.
And you're in this zone where you're like, so they're spending so much time together. Is the idea that they're setting up that now that he's lived a full life with his wife and she is sadly going to pass away, that the door will be open for maybe her and him to be together, Alicia Silverstone
Sure.
and Richard Lewis.
And it's just not really. I mean, I also appreciate that there's never actually a moment, because I had a minute where I was like, oh my God, is he going to hit on her? Because even though he thinks she's the daughter, and that never happens.
no, he's like,
Just like, your mom was great. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh.
and he's holding a candle for his wife who is still alive.
Yeah.
And Alicia Silverstone, in a similar way, like, I think it's not that she has a death wish, but she realizes, like, I could do two great things for the two people I have cared the most about in my entire life. And also, as she says, I have lived so fucking much. Like, I've had my fill. Like, not that I resent still being alive, but I've like I've been not greedy, but like I've been very lucky with how much I've gotten to experience.
Well, yeah, her explaining that the reason why she begged to be turned into a vampire, because the, people who are begging to be turned to a vampire is such also like a very, common trope in vampire stories, like people
broken,
who want
lost,
seeking it out,
unfulfilled.
like, like Renfield in this, like he's like, awaken me. And they're like, that's not how it works. Or like, people on Buffy, there's always like groupies or whatever, people always want this or they think they want this. But her reason is also completely different from anyone else. It's not like, oh, I just want to like not die. She's like, I have 2 kids who will be orphans if I die, and I would rather not leave them alone.
Right. And she talks about that her kids lived until like 80 and 99. I think she says her daughter set the record for the oldest living person at the time.
It was just like, yeah, it was unprecedented at the time.
And now she has gone on to live like another 100 years past that.
But she was like, but the only thing I wanted to do with this was raise them, and I did it.
And I did that. So like, what is it now? Right. And
I really like, I don't love, some of the vampire stuff is cheesy in this in a way where I'm like, okay, I don't need like a Bloodsuckers Anonymous situation, but I get it.
Sure.
But I do feel like some of the, like Heckerling clearly did a ton of research. I mean, the vampire bat thing alone, where she's like, we have an enzyme in our spit. And I just spit into him. And I was like, you have done some Wikipedia hole research and I respect it. But some of her twists on the vampire thing, I think are really interesting and smart in a way that ties back to the themes she's the most interested in, like aging, motherhood, relevance.
Yeah. Those are the big 3 in this movie. Right. And they all track really well onto vampire history and our cultural understanding of them. And I just like, it was one of those things where, as you said, like first 30 minutes, I'm like, okay, there's some funny jokes in this.
Yeah, I get the concept.
Right.
Is this going to be sustainable?
Next 30 minutes, I'm like, fuck, I like care about these characters. And the last 30 minutes, I'm like, she has set up all the pieces on the game board really well and really effortlessly for now this all being like perfectly set up for a very effective finale.
Yeah, and it's definitely a kind of movie where I feel like she's so, like, it's so close to getting all the tonal mismatches right. Yes. Like, I feel like, she clearly loves like a voiceover, an exposition dump, etc.
This movie starts with quite a clumsy one. Like it really like,
and it starts it off on a note where you're like, oh, okay, here we go. Like, I'm sure I can tell that Ben turned this on this morning and was like, okay,
right? Because it starts and you're just like, fuck, is this like a student film?
It's just
a little bit.
It's a little like, and then then the 60s happened. I was like, oh my god, we're just doing the decade,
photoshopped like pictures and like dumb motion graphics. Yeah.
Right. But it's because she's like, she clearly has so many ideas and she's like, I only have so much time.
Yeah.
This is the most efficient way to do it. And of course, then I went to see Sinners yesterday and I was like, well, that's how you do it. Opening thing, like it's crazy beautiful. But also he
exact same thing in Black Panther. He is kind of the king of doing that.
The like 2-minute animated in an interesting way intro that's like, got it. Let's go. Yeah.
Right. He's figured out how to make that about as elegant as you possibly can. And successfully stick a bunch of info in your head that allows the rest of the movie to mostly be emotional.
Yeah. But yeah, what was I going to say? I was reading David Sims's interview with Ryan Coogler.
Great guy.
Yeah.
Really incredible guy to talk to.
Really,
really
just
awesome.
David's a great guy.
Yeah, what a fun guy to talk to.
So
I really
incredible
enjoyed
to talk
it.
We all love David, don't we?
But I was interested. I feel like something. I don't remember why I thought of this. Maybe it's good. No, I do. I opened my phone and I saw it. One reason why I think he really encapsulated something that I feel like is the thing I liked about vampires and does come up in every single adaptation. And he really summed it up quite well in your interview. Vampires still have so much of their humanity left, their knowledge, and also they can present as something that's not what they truly are.
But I mean, Sinners is partly about vampires being great lovers of art, right? Like, and being drawn to like artistic sort of like tremors in the fucking force. They're like, oh my God, someone is speaking to the human experience.
They can steal it and repeat it in a way.
Sure. Right. And like it just rocks that's sort of like, he's thinking about vampires and like he hits on that rather than just like, it's scary that they suck your blood, which is scary.
Which is very scary.
I want to keep that blood.
Sexy.
And a little sexy. I mean, my favorite thing about interviewing Ryan was when
first name basis.
Yeah, he's my best friend. Was when I was like, can I bring up, From Dusk Till Dawn, obviously, the most obvious sort of like analog.
Right.
Right?
He was like, can I bring up Puss in Boots, The Last Wish?
Well, that's exactly it.
Right.
Where he was like, dude, I love that movie. I love Robert Rodriguez. And when I talked to Robert about From Dusk Till Dawn, he was like, well, my biggest influence was Spike Lee. Like, I was just trying to copy Spike Lee. I didn't know about this and that or the other thing. I was a 25-year-old or whatever age I was when I'm making these movies. And I love fucking Spike Lee. I love Do the Right Thing is like a 24-hour movie. And then Coogler's like, and I love From Dusk Till Dawn, but what I love is The Faculty, because The Faculty is two genres getting mushed together in a way that shouldn't work and does. Like, that's my bigger inspiration.
That Coogler is not just such a historian and is so smart about the lineage of these things and what he's in conversation with, but also that he's like a fucking omnivore, that his tastes are so varied, and you're like, this guy does just find
that's the thing.
Interesting aspects in everything.
And then so he's talking to me about The Faculty, and he's like, and then obviously Inside Llewyn Davis, Lovers Rock, the Steve McQueen thing. And then he's like, and then the biggest thing for me is this Twilight Zone episode called The Last Rites of Jeff Myrtlebank. And I'm like, what's that? Like, and he's like, oh, it's about a small town, that he's and then he's like, and Salem's Lot, the book, not the movie. I've never seen the movie except for the one shot. And I'm like, the shot of the kid floating in the window. He's like, yeah, the one shot everyone's seen from Salem's Lot.
I don't remember what interview it was, not to give credit to an interview that you didn't do, but someone else speaking to Ryan Coogler, he talked about how he was, I think, talking to Goranson as they were like plotting out the movie about just like, what sort of happened to the blues? Like, I'm making this movie about, spoilers for Sinners, the biggest movie in America, probably still has a big influence by the time this episode comes out. But this like lineage he's creating in the history of music and, right, the slipstream of all this stuff,
sure,
right?
Yes.
And he was just
everything
sort of like,
owes something to the blues.
There's a big jump, right? Yes.
Yes.
You say this in the interview very wisely.
Right.
And
so wise.
Yes. And he was just like, I'm like trying to fill this gap between like the blues and hip hop and funk. And like, what is this missing piece here? And Goranson was like, grunge.
Nice.
Grunge was like the 90s big wave kind of capturing the spirit of the blues. And he was just like, I've heard the 3 Nirvana songs that are on the radio all the time.
But I'm
never
like
dug
a grunge
in.
guy.
And now he's like, I'm all fucking in on grunge now.
A lot of good shit in there.
Right. And it's like drug addicts like struggling with their sadness and being owned by corporations.
Right.
And like,
and I mean, that mid-movie sequence, that Warner just like, just all the different music eras, it's so impressive on 10,000 different levels, but it's also like very of a vampire movie. Like, it's to also, see all these different eras.
When that happened, I was completely, I saw the film very early, not to brag, because I was interviewing Ryan Coogler. Did I mention that?
David Sims. Go brag.
And I was completely unprepared for that sequence. I really hadn't watched the trailer for Sinners. I just knew there was a big vampire
I didn't even know that the sequence was in there. I saw it yesterday.
That's awesome that it caught you off guard or whatever. It's a sequence you're like, damn, he rocked that. But then you're also like, damn, B-boys spinning around while blues music play, in an old saloon could suck, could not work.
It's a humongous swing. And part of what I think is so thrilling about the movie and has really captured people is it's the kind of sequence where you watch it and when it starts, you're holding your breath and you're like, he is so close to fucking this up.
And
if he fucks this up, the movie does not recover from this.
It's like, it's crazy that's that things escalate from there. Like, how is that not, like, I mean, it is a peak, but then the things escalate from there. But it is the kind of sequence that underlines why he picked vampires. You cannot do that. You can't do that sequence with a zombie movie. Like, it doesn't make sense.
Let's open a saloon.
Okay.
Zombie movies are so much
Was that what you were going to say? We should get a saloon?
Yeah,
we're going to open a saloon.
Was that what you were going to say?
Yeah.
Okay.
That is what he was going to say.
No, because I was just talking about zombie movies with my friends who are asking me
and like,
about
zombies
them,
are not
Ellen
my
and
monsters.
Caitlin.
Yeah.
And I was like, with zombies, it's like, it takes 40 years for Danny Boyle to be like, what if they ran? And people are like, hold on there, cowboys. Zombies behave in one way. It's like, there's not a lot of variation with zombie stuff.
You know what? And this is interesting.
And it reflects usually just one kind of thing, which is an apocalypse. Yeah.
I am so much more innately drawn to zombies. Like, if you tell me that someone's making a zombie movie, I'm excited.
Is it because the world has to be different?
I don't know.
Because the whole world has to be different with zombies. And the whole thing about vampires is that they're trying to be, they're trying to pass unnoticed.
And have their space.
And have their space and have a good sexy time.
I think I do.
Gooning tomb.
If like zombies could just like live in the world and like just eat leftover dead people.
Well,
Just like toss them a toss them a torso.
I'm so sorry, Ben. Cover your ears. CW show iZombie does try to do that.
Yes. I feel like Warm Bodies does a sort of version of that as well.
But it's like, there's only so much you can do with that. Like with vampires, it's very much like they have one face, it's a human face. They have another, it's the vampire face. And they have enough of their memories and they have all their previous knowledge. Like they don't suddenly factory reset in the same way that other monsters do. Like, I mean, and werewolves are kind of that where it's like once a month, but it's involuntary. But vampires give you so much room to work with in terms of a person's memory, what their relationship to the world is, how that changes.
It's much richer for storytelling. There's more baked in that has interesting potential. I think I do like societal collapse and apocalypse stories and things that get to test human behavior, like stripped down to its raw essence.
Zombies inevitably are that.
I think I also like the iconography of rotting people. Like, I think if you show me a drawing of a zombie, I'm more engaged.
The faces
like
in
of a
this room
cartoon than like a guy with fangs and blood dripping down his face.
You love a rotting person.
But yet...
You love rot.
I love rot. But yet, like, and I think our buddy David Rees said this on the 20 Years Later episode. He was like, I can't think of a type of movie I love more with a lower percentage of movies I actually like. You know, and I think like I will be pleasantly like entertained by some junky, shitty zombie movie. But like unquestionably, there are more vampire movies that I think are capital G great than zombie movies. And yet I hear someone's making a vampire movie. I'm like, ugh. Again, I hear someone's making a zombie movie and I'm like, yeah, let's go. Even if it's a 2 out of 10.
That's interesting. I mean, I feel like, you know, because zombie movies are about the humans. They're not about the zombies.
Right.
Because the zombies don't have thoughts.
That's what I like. That it sort of creates a template for an ensemble cast.
That is the reason for zombie movies being good, obviously.
Vampire stories are still very human.
But
and they're
usually
more character studies.
The humans themselves are of secondary importance.
For sure.
You know, they may be doing an interview with them.
They could be interviewing them.
Yes.
Right. That's also what
interview
you do, kind of like with Kugler.
Perhaps I should interview
Maybe you did interview a vampire.
What do they call humans in this movie again?
Day players.
Day players.
Is a joke.
Funny.
That is a film production joke. Day players are what you call an actor or a crew member who's only doing the one day. Yes. It's clever. To your point, she realizes that she can get this rush from helping other people, and it sort of gives her a reason to live. But I think it's a really good unsolvable dilemma, which is like she's found this new pep in her step, and yet she realizes the single best version of that involves her dying.
And she also, it doesn't seem to bother her. She just has to adjust. And she's also like, my friend is about to have the opportunity I already had.
I got to give
to raise a child she wants.
Right. And so she then also very generously is like, I can bring in horny Justin Kirk and save Richard Lewis's life.
He's
Justin
pretty
Kirk,
hot in this.
Marry me.
I just think, I like that we were just like, the energy on this side of the room. We were like, give us a second.
I
to have a moment
him
with eyeliner Justin Kirk.
Yes.
Kirk. Ukrainian, he emphasizes over and over again.
That's a funny joke every time.
I just think it's funny that character is basically her being like, here's all the shit I'm not interested in with vampires.
Yeah.
And let me put it into one character and have someone very charismatically play the most annoying guy in the world.
The most stereotypically annoying vampire-y guy.
A blah, blah, blah guy who wants to fuck women. Right.
Mm-hmm.
It says juicy on her butt, and I am going to take her at her word.
And he's got the like Nosferatu teeth that don't look cool.
My roommate was like, why does he have gopher teeth? And I was like, fuck, they are gopher teeth.
They're
really hard to unsee.
Yeah.
The little gopher teeth. But that, I'm sure you have talked, I did listen to your Fast Times episode with Sinner Star Lilla Kirk. Well done there.
Humble brag.
But
humble brag for you, listener.
I'm sure you've talked about many a comedic sex scene at this point because Heckerling likes those. Yeah. And they're a couple in this one. Like there's the sort of, Stacy and Ritter and Dan Stevens rolling off the bed and they're levitating kind of deal. But then like the absolutely,
it's
not great.
They just pull it off well enough in a way that makes you wish it looked a little better.
It does actually remind me of one of the bits I like in this where she's just like levitating along the street and Goody's like, oh my God, you can't do that. And she's like, it's New York. No one gives a shit. I will every time that joke is made in anything.
Someone levitating.
That joke is, could not be more bread and butter classic. Oh, it's New York. No one cares. It's true every time.
It's always funny.
Works
you are
every
right.
time.
You are right.
Yeah. But the Justin Kirk scene where basically Goody's like, before I die, I'm going to give Richard Lewis the option of would his wife, like, would he rather his wife become a vampire and live than die as she is going to? And he thinks about it for approximately 2 seconds and says, yes, please. And she sends Justin Kirk in there to
ravish her, essentially.
That scene is insane. I got so dizzy. It's
drawn out. Yes.
It's very, and then, you have the comedic sort of like knocking on it, being like, it doesn't take that long. You are milking it.
Right,
like once he like, does the slit across his stomach and is like, but I'm like, then Mary Lou Henner comes out looking unbelievably hot.
I'm going to just quickly check my notes that I have from the Johnny Dangerously episode. I'm seeing I still have written here, humana.
Awooga.
May we just reiterate? And also, did you clock that the dress she's in is a redone hospital gown?
I did, yes.
Yeah, very well really done good. From Mona May on that one. Fits her like a fucking glove. And she brings him in, and that's the last we see of him. But I'm like,
It's
vampire?
a fine send-off.
I was like, but I was also like, she was like, you have to promise to like have her only eat animals and stuff. And then she comes out looking like that. And I'm like, you just made a new Sigourney. Like, she is not gonna play nice.
Look, again, in the TV version of this, there's stuff to plumb there.
Right, that's
Sigourney,
a full season
That's not happening.
As much as I hope and pray this is not the final film she ever makes, there is something in how much she brings back so much of her history of Heckerling Company players, down to like Brian Backer, who's Rat in Fast Times, being
the dentist who gets eaten briefly. It was nice to see him.
Taylor Negron back, Wallace Shawn back, Mary Lou Henner back, Alicia Silverstone, obviously.
I don't think Kirsten Johnson's in.
She feels like she should have been. Weirdly.
Any of the others.
Well, it definitely feels like a part where she was like, "I like you, and you should be in it," but then she's kind of doing a not good British accent. I'm kind of like, you didn't.
Because it's clear
this is a waste, but I'm glad to see you.
Things of she obviously wants Wallace Shawn to be Van Helsing,
and she wants someone maybe comically taller,
right? And then Dan Stevens wants to do it, and now you need to figure out like who is the woman that Wallace Shawn could have made Dan Stevens with.
It's not Kirsten Johnson. I was happy to see her, but it was a waste. But
it should be like Joanna Lumley or something.
But it is the kind of thing where I'm like, if Heckerling had kept making movies after that, like she would have been in there, 100%. Was she? Maybe she was in like a Suburgatory, because I know Heckerling went on to do a bunch of Suburgatory.
Yes,
that feels like something.
Did Carrie Diaries?
Right.
Silverstone did the Suburgatory arc.
A lot of Red Oaks.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ah, yes, Red Oaks.
And I feel like there's one other big show she did a bunch of episodes on. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it's definitely.
She directed the Hot Girls episode of The Office, but we're not talking about it.
We're not talking about it, David.
It looks like she did a Quibi show. Of course, you remember you commissioned that, David, called Royalties, that I've heard is good and is still watchable somewhere.
Oh, cool. I mean, that's awesome. Everything I commissioned is
6
good.
Red Oaks, 1 Suburgatory.
She did a Rake.
3 Rake with the steak on his face.
Steak on his face.
But I didn't. I hope it's not a curtain call, but it is notable also because, again, she didn't have a budget, and that they were all like, "Yeah, we'll come do it. Like, we'll go to Detroit or wherever,
absolutely,
and we'll do it."
Yes,
for clearly no money.
Yes, 37 days in Detroit, but some New York location stuff. No question.
And it is often a real Achilles heel of the Amy Heckerling filmography that we keep butting up against, as she makes movies set in specific cities and then is told she cannot film in those places. And you have this weird kind of non-specific doubling that is often then married to what is clearly 2 days of establishing shots that often don't really have the primary actors in them, or only have them in 1 or 2. This, there is like, she got her
people.
She did. She got enough days of actual actors in front of real New York places to make it count, to mesh well.
Just to tell you some other things before we move on to the end of Vamps. First choice for Sisters was Michelle Pfeiffer, who liked the script.
But she said, I could never be your vampire.
God damn.
Was busy doing Dark Shadows.
Well.
She saw Dan Stevens in a play with Judi Dench called Hay Fever. And then she saw a lot of stuff in England because she was making I Could Never Be Your Woman. And like that's where she first noticed him. And then Downton Abbey, helped him be and yes, indeed, they did shoot in Detroit. They did shoot on a type. I'm just making sure I caught everything here. And it was unceremoniously dumped, essentially straight to DVD. I mean, VOD. But it did, according to JJ, it was released just at the AMC Burbank 8. Ever been there?
Oh. God,
You may have gone to a press screening or something, to be clear.
but maybe
the
I did
Family
go
story
there.
checks out, though.
Right.
It does sound right.
And we went to Cinefamily a lot at that time. But that's not out of the question, for sure. I worked up there at the time. I worked in North Hollywood then. So.
And of course, as we noted, she has done a bunch of TV, but has said that she's not particularly thrilled making episodic TV.
Mm-hmm. She's still like writing all the time. She was going to make a Clueless musical.
Claimed she's
the Clueless musical is opening in the West End this summer.
And it's supposed to be god awful.
She was doing it off Broadway with Dove Cameron in 2020 with the hope it would transfer, and then everything shut down.
Right.
It is now finally opening in the West End, and as we alluded to earlier, it was recently announced that she is executive producing a Clueless continuation show for Peacock with Alicia Silverstone.
But it's actually going to be written by the Gossip Girl people. Right.
It seems like it's a little bit more of
a
John Carpenter.
And she'll be the
I think so.
Right.
The Margaret Collin of that show.
Like, look, 3 years ago, they announced that Peacock was developing a Clueless reboot that was like fucking Clueless Riverdale, where Cher is missing and Dion has to solve her murder, and it was going to be dark and gritty. And like, this sounds like the much better universe of things.
Sure.
But it is like a little bit it's a slightly damning statement that like Amy Heckerling is here regularly doing interviews and talking about how much she wishes she could get to make her stuff. And the two things she can do are just circling back to Clueless.
Yeah.
Can I do this as a musical?
The most juice.
Right. Can I get a paycheck for doing this on TV?
Well, I think at some point she's just like, if you're going to want to redo this, I'd rather be a part of the residuals. Yeah, sure. Like, I'd rather get a piece of it.
Of course. Let her have her money. I don't begrudge Alicia Silverstone or doing the legacy sequel either. What's up?
Well, no, I've seen, I haven't seen every Heckerling, but what other ones are New York based?
Well, all the Look Who's Talkings, but they are all
Vancouver.
It's not really shot in
New
York.
Loser is NYU, but shot in Toronto.
Okay,
of course.
I can
Johnny Dangerously is New York. Gangstery,
but it's so soundstagey that it doesn't have the same problem.
So basically, Clueless and Fast Times, her most famous works, are the LA ones. I Could Never Be Your Woman is also, of course, set in just a
Los Angeles.
And then the European Vacation film, this might stun you, is actually set all over Europe.
And what is crazy is...
Does that include Britain? Or
there's a whole British section, and then Germany and France. Yeah, it was a good 30 years pre-Brexit.
We had not Brexited.
No.
But that film actually did filming in 5 different countries.
And was a nightmare.
A nightmare, but it is, you watch it and you're like, holy shit, they flew everyone everywhere.
But it's really interesting that this one, if it's her last, which I hope it's not, but it's so much like she's like, I want to tell the entire story, not the entire story of New York, obviously 1840 wasn't the beginning of New York, but she's like, I'm going to tell you about how this city has evolved. And Goody it's because I feel like so many other vampires will travel and they'll go other places, and Goody's like, I've got everything I need. It's very native New Yorker, where you're just like, why would I go? I got it.
I saw The Shrouds recently, which I loved, and I think is already being kind of slept on and misunderstood. And
I wasn't a huge fan of it. I'm sorry. I like the themes a lot. I think I just did not find it to be the most involving movie. I like the theme.
I liked it from and I found it very funny.
Sure,
but
it's kind of funny.
It is, to me, a perfect example.
I want to defend it because I love him, and I think it's a very interesting movie.
He is so important to me. I don't think it's anywhere near his top tier of films. And yet, I walked out of it and said, that's kind of a perfect film if we're unlucky enough that he never gets to make another one.
Absolutely.
And it feels in a way similar to Vamps.
I think he's done.
And some other filmmakers where they're just sort of like, it has been getting harder and harder for me to get stuff made. And I have to make every movie with the awareness that this might be my final statement. And Vamps does feel like she's just putting so much in it, not pessimistically, but just being like, who knows? Right? It's kind of like her final statement on New York, on youth culture, on relationships, on motherhood, all these things.
I like Crimes of the Future a lot more as a movie, but I think The Shrouds is a very interesting coda.
I agree with you.
To his career.
Which I feel, Vamps I'm putting in the same category, where it's like, it's not her best movie, but if it sadly has to be her coda in feature films, it is a pretty good one.
I think when Cronenberg movies are mega chatty, it can be a problem, I guess is my take.
I would say that my read is in that film, it is a form of knowing self-parody. I think he is mocking his own critics' analysis of his movies being cold and analytical about very emotional things.
Sure.
That was my read. I will say I also saw it at the Nighthawk in a row with 5 people who were committed to watching it as if they were doing a Riff Tracks commentary.
Oh, how fun.
And thought they were mocking it, and I almost went full Joker mode on them.
I would go a little Joker mode.
I did turn to this one woman at one point and go, "Can you please be quiet?" With like the intensity of 1,000 burning suns,
Sure.
and she was freaked out.
You may be right, because you're right. You started high.
It was too quick.
Yes, right.
But Vincent Cassel took his shirt off in a scene of mourning, and she went, "Yes, yes," and I was like, "I can tolerate this no longer."
I mean, that is objectively hilarious that someone said yas during the Shrek.
Sure, but it was coming off of 45 minutes of a fucking meditation on death.
No,
where they kept being like, what? Like just doing this sort of performative laughing at like, what? Who talks like this?
She just saw Vincent Cassel and she flashed back viscerally to him in Ocean's 12 with his sweatpants very low.
I was all for
Which is the only proper response to that.
I was all for her thirsting after Vincent Cassel. If I felt like it wasn't done mockingly.
All been there.
It felt like she was mocking the idea of thirsting after him. And I'm like,
that's unacceptable.
He is hot and this movie knows it's funny, and stop acting like you're smarter in it. Anyway, the film Vamps, directed by Amy Heckerling. Can we talk about the ending?
Sure, the ending's lovely. I mean, it's exactly what you want it to be, I guess is the best way for me to put it.
It's a very good gag.
Going
that
to Times
also,
Square,
once
America's
again,
greatest
not
place.
Executed.
The center of the world? Is that what
she said? The center of things.
It's all happening.
I don't know. Did you read
Look, if you want to see 2010 Broadway musical billboards,
wow.
watch the last scene of Vamps. It's kind of awesome. Like
Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark. She captured it.
I forgot about the women on the verge of a nervous breakdown musical.
Right. The Sinatra jukebox musical. There's so much interesting stuff.
Addams Family.
Yeah.
Yep. But it's just like
they kill Sigourney Weaver.
They kill Sigourney Weaver in this very it's like the Mummy Return of the Dragon Emperor level graphics sort of deal. Very, death becomes
CGI
her
skeleton.
Okay, when she comes out of the tomb with the saber and she's a skeleton and she's singing "My eyes have seen the coming of the glory of the Lord," I fully that was the funniest. It was so funny.
Here's what I'll say about that as well.
Funny.
Still would.
Let me at her.
Sigourney with a fucking skeleton, sword-wielding body. I take my chances.
Yep. Yeah. But they don't. They kill her.
They kill her, and you have this very good gag that once again, you're just like, fuck. If she had a little more resources, this would be impeccable. Where Kristen Ritter immediately in a series of 3 shots, her butt gets a little flatter.
A little flat.
The lighting changes on her.
Yep.
And and her arms start sagging.
Right.
It's
like 2 wrinkles.
But it's like pretty well done because it's like she doesn't. It's just enough.
It's just enough.
And
where
she's like, I stayed out of the sun and I didn't drink or smoke, so good for me.
Right. And then
that worked for me.
Yeah. It's a good joke. Looks over to Lisa Silverstone, who is in not the world's best old age makeup.
I wouldn't say so, no.
Immediately clocks, "You've been lying to me about your age." They bring up the History Channel thing and like, "Are you going to stop aging now?"
Big no.
Alicia Silverstone gives the knowing look of just like, this is just going to advance. Clock is ticking until I decay. But I don't want to die here. I want to go to the center of where everything happens. And then they go to Times Square and she like looks around at the world's greatest billboards and flashes back to like the history of New York City.
She gets a pretzel, which I'm sad for her for. I wanted her to get a hot dog.
But
the pretzels are not that good.
She doesn't know though. That's the thing.
She didn't even get mustard.
What doesn't know can't hurt.
Dry.
It's genuinely
give her
very
a cool DC to wash it down with.
Affecting.
But it is a really, for as bad as the wig is, or as fine as the dust effect is. The music, I don't remember what the song is, but the song and her flashing back to all her stuff and her kids and everything, it fucking got me.
And also culture, like not just her own personal memories, but like everything she's lived through.
It's just, I don't know. I felt very touched. And then, obviously, and one of the reasons Stacy's so sad is because she's like, now you'll never meet my baby and you won't raise this baby with me. And they hold hands. And it's just a very lovely friendship moment. And I will say an impressively straight vampire movie that I don't hold it against it.
Yeah.
Which is saying
they don't
something.
Really,
there's never that. No.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't expect Heckerling to do that, honestly.
No,
but it is, and not only do they never have a little moment, but she gets pregnant. It's like very straight, but it is lovely.
Well, fucking Dan Stevens will make anyone pregnant.
You promise? It's kind of a knockout ending. And
it's one of those
really
things
good
where I'm
ending.
like,
I was a little moved.
Yeah.
It was, and Times Square is Times Square, but I think there's a New York Times profile of Heckerling that I'm sure you've referenced, where it's like, she's making the Clueless musical, but Times Square is like one of her first memories, like coming out of the subway in a stroller. She's like, and there was Times Square, and it looked like that. And so for her to have this relationship with Times Square, where she's like, this was where she described it as like the center of things. Like this is like, she was like, everything is here. And so for that, there's like such, there's always an analog. Like obviously many of these films are personal, but this is such a personal moment. And it's bittersweet because Goody seems to have accepted it and she's happy about it. I am not convinced Heckerling is being like, and now I'm irrelevant and I'm going to die.
I have always had a real similar affection and obsession with Times Square as a lifelong New Yorker, from how like overstimulating and exciting it was to me as a child to even now when every other native New Yorker I know is just like, why would you ever go there by choice? I have always found it weirdly relaxing and serene to just submit myself to the chaos of Times Square and stand in the middle or just wander around, whatever.
That's where I went the night after prom, like with my friends from Jersey. We went to Times Square. And I was like, because this is the cool, like this is the busiest, most not New Jersey thing we could do right now is go to Times Square and get
to Seaside Heights.
Oh, I mean, that's good too. I mean,
that's the most Jersey thing.
That is the most Jersey thing you could do. Yes, I went the other way. But
it is so insufferable and annoying and impossible to navigate. And yet, when I am there, I do feel like the way this character feels. Where I'm like, this is the center of the world.
No. Interesting. Well, I am almost always like, get me out of here.
I'm presenting myself as the weirdo and the freak, and I in watching these movies and in reading all the Heckerling interviews and in living with her for the last couple months we have in our head, I'm just like I'm really just kind of on her wavelength, and I found myself defending a lot of her movies that people don't like as much that just kind of work for me, and I just feel like I have a very similar outlook on a lot of things to her, it's like. In watching this movie, it does feel like the ending is her sort of being like, has my time passed? Which more globally than just her and her career also feels like this is kind of acknowledging the end of a type of movie that doesn't get made anymore. And the last two films she made were basically made past, like on borrowed time, right? Like the studios are no longer making these. So now you have to like scrape and scavenge and pull together the wonkiest version of this thing.
The thing too is that she did have to scrape and scavenge for this, but she did get to do Times Square.
Yeah.
For one night, she got Times Square.
She like had her 3 main actors in the middle of Times Square. There's like triumphs in this movie that really got to me. I still think it is like on whole a good movie that I enjoy quite a bit. It is frustrating, as we said, bittersweet that it is not like a triumph, which it should be.
But I feel like it dealt with a lot of I'm really glad that I watched I Could Never Be Your Woman before this, because I feel like that one was so close to her experience that I feel like it was, I mean, you've talked about it, I won't do it, but I do feel like this movie, I felt like dealt with a lot of the same themes better, because she could take a slight step back. It's actually, like watching it, I was like, I'm actually surprised it took you this long to get to vampires. Like they're so up the street of everything you want to talk about, that I feel like this one, she did get to something there.
Can I read an extended quote that I found from her the other day?
David and Ben.
We're saying goodbye to Amy Heckerling. We're saying goodbye to Amy Heckerling.
Enough.
We're saying goodbye to Amy Heckerling.
You need a Sour Patch Kid?
Yes. I need like 20 of them. Come on. What's the quote?
Go.
Come on.
He's getting Sour Patch Kids.
Our friend Hillary Weston, friend of the podcast, Criterion, did an interview with Amy Heckerling, I think around the time that the Fast Times release was coming out. And she was talking about where Clueless came from, these quotes that we've sort of talked about before, the projection of the optimist, right? And she's talking about how much she admires the idea of the optimist and running the world and like putting the shine on them. And then she just says, also, a world full of optimists wouldn't be a good idea, because what if we all went, global warming, it will be fine. We need pessimists. You can't just say, oh, here's this thing I made, it's great. Although a lot of people that are creative have that. They go, I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and they think everything they do is great. And then there are people that say, this has been done before and here's all the ways it could stink. And then you can't write one word without thinking about how bad it could be based on how people could react, how other ways have fallen flat. And then she basically immediately dunks on Life is Beautiful and The Day the Clown Cried. But I just think that sort of encapsulates the like essential tension between the two sides of Amy Heckerling in her work that is often represented, but also I think what must feel frustrating to her in trying to get stuff made. Because there was a point in time where the industry went like, you got it, we want whatever you're selling. And that self-doubt she had was conquered by people begging her to come in. And I think in that New York Times profile where she talks about writing all the time, and a similar thing with her having Vamps on a shelf for years before she finally got it made, I think she is very self-defeating if people are not banging down her door asking what she has. That's a bummer.
She made Clueless, though.
Yeah, she made
I didn't make fucking Clueless.
many great films. That we don't discuss that enough. That in fact, you have never directed Clueless, and in that sense, you're a giant fucking failure.
No, I didn't try. Didn't even try. Didn't even get off the couch and try.
Cowardly.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. We have not watched or done our loser episode at the time of this recording, so we're now going to place in the audio of the rankings that we will record after the fact of her entire career. Okay, this is Griffin David.
Mm-hmm.
Zooming in from the future. Heckerling rankings.
Here we go.
David, you want to go first?
Number 1, Clueless.
Weird, surprising.
Number 2, Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Okay.
Normal so far.
Mm-hmm.
Number 3, Look Who's Talking.
Mm-hmm.
I have that over Johnny Dangerously in 4th.
Mm-hmm.
And Vamps in 5th.
Okay.
And I Could Never Be Your Woman in 6th.
Wow.
And Who's a Her in 7th.
Okay.
Euro Vacation in 8th. Look Who's Talking to, bringing up the rear.
That's maybe the rudest thing you've ever done in a ranking.
What?
Mr. Toilet Man alone
You're so
deserves better than the lowest.
But it's so funny
spot.
because you're like, how could you say that about Look Who's Talking to? And I'm like, what? And you're like, Mr. Toilet Man. But then you don't have anything else.
That movie is like the Holy Mountain. It's just like deranged, like fever dream images. Okay, here's my ranking.
Okay.
You might be surprised to hear we have the same top 5, just in a slightly different order. But I think that's basically the inarguable.
Third.
Right. So I have Fast Times at number 1. I love Fast Times.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, sure.
Clueless number 2. Johnny Dangerously at number 3. Look Who's Talking at number 4. Vamps at 5.
Mm-hmm.
The number 6. Exactly where it belongs. Look Who's Talking 2.
Jesus Christ.
Number 7. National Lampoon's European Vacation.
Whoa.
Number 8, Look Who's a Her.
Okay.
Number 9, I Could Never Be Your Woman.
How? Pfeiffer. Dead in a ditch.
Do you remember that watching that movie feels like staring into the sun?
It's like having a stroke.
It has things in it I like.
Exactly.
There is no movie she's made that I dislike holistically.
I would say there's one for me.
Which is?
A little film with Mr. Toilet in it.
You're, by referring to it as a film with Mr. Toilet Man, you're proving your entire thesis wrong. He eats poo-poo and pee-pee, and he's voiced by Mel Brooks. Okay, anyway, that's our ranking.
His spit is blue.
Ben's ranking is Look Who's Talking Now 10 times, even though she didn't direct that.
It's fun. Okay? And there's animals, and they talk in it.
It has talking dogs.
Yeah, you don't have to tell me.
Okay, back to the episode.
We've done this box office game before.
We have?
Yep. We've done it twice.
It's amazing that there is a box office game for this one.
That's the thing. It's sort of a nominal box office game. But number 1 is an animated film that Ben loves.
It's an animated film that Ben
that we've
loves.
covered.
It is called Wreck-It Ralph.
Correct. New this week. So Ben was wrecking it. I know you actually first watched the movie on a plane or something, but you were, let's think of you wrecking it.
I didn't end up seeing it.
You said you didn't remember. Yeah, you said you didn't remember much, but you wrecked it.
Number 2 is at the box office is a serious, sort of big scale-ish drama. It got a couple Oscar nominations. Also new this week, and we've also covered it on the show.
We've also covered it on this show. In the year 2012, it is not a Fincher. It's not an Ang Lee. It is not a Demi. It's not a Myers. It's not Spielberg. It's not a Crow.
November 2nd, 2012, by the way.
Yeah, I know. November 2nd, 2012. Not a Cameron. It's not a Lucas. It's not Shyamalan. David spinning his iPhone cable really fast. Give me a serious Oscar film. It got a couple nominations. Tell me some of the nominations it got.
Best Actor.
It got Best Actor.
Yes. Could have won if this guy hadn't already won an Oscar or two. And Best Original Screenplay.
It got Best Actor and Best Original Screenplay. And this person had already won 2 Oscars?
He sure had.
It's not a Denzel. It is a Denzel. It's called Flight.
That's right.
There we go.
Now, number 3 at the box office wins Best Picture for 2012.
Mm-hmm.
And what is that?
It is The Artist. Oh, it's what? Are you saying I'm right?
No, you are not.
Pleasure with 2012. That's the year before.
Artist is 2011.
Okay, so 2012. The Best Picture winner was Go Fuck Yourself.
There you go.
Okay.
Now, number 4, we just had to get to 4. I believe has really befuddled you both times. I think both times we played this box office game, you took several golf swings at this
challenge
one.
It
is an action film. It is directed by a first-time director who's better known as a musician.
Oh, fuck. The problem is I know exactly what this movie is, and I always get the wording of the title wrong. Is it called The Man with the Golden Fist?
You always say that, and it's always... What material?
Iron?
There you go. There's one episode, I think, where you're like, bronze, brass, stone! It takes you way too long to get to iron.
Yes. The RZA.
Yes, the RZA's martial arts film. I believe so.
Yeah.
Despite Ben's love of Netflix's Iron Fist.
Of course.
Number 5 at the box office is an action sequel.
It's an action sequel. It's number 2. It's a Deuce.
It's a number 2.
Is it a TOO2?
No.
Heckerling style?
No, it's not.
It's an action sequel. It's a Deuce. Did it keep going after this, or was this the end of the road? It kept going.
There's a sexy voice.
Well, I'm doing the guy.
Oh, he's doing
it's not John Wick Chapter 2, is it? But the guy's got a deep voice.
This guy should stay around.
Okay. And it's not Butler and it's not Statham.
No, older.
Who's old? Stallone?
No, younger. Well,
younger.
I think a little younger.
It's not Ford and it's not Eastwood. No, but he's mostly an action guy?
Later in life only.
Oh.
He's got a very particular set of skills.
Well, I didn't want to do the accent.
Of course.
This is Taken 2.
That's right.
Yeah. A movie I often say has one of the best setups ever.
You love the setup for that movie, but it sucks.
Yeah.
Sucks very bad.
It's actually really shitty movie. A really bad movie
I don't
for
like
losers
Taken 1.
Exclusively.
Like, I think Taken 1 is massively overrated. It just has the Neeson juice and it's kind of something,
You know what? I'm going to say the thing. It's a perfect cultural object. It is not a good movie, but it's a perfect cultural object. And 2 is a
Taken 2 is like,
for idiots.
Forget it. Just no. Because what they then figured out is Neeson can just do this kind of thing.
Right.
It doesn't have to be in the Taken verse.
And then Taken 3 kind of has no hook.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just sort of he's back. No, I think no one gets taken in Taken 3.
It's okay.
I'm going to take you.
I feel like they should have played around with the titling a little bit more.
Taken TOO.
Taking.
Oh, sure.
Sure.
That's about it, right?
Well, hold on.
Given Back. The third one should be called Given Back.
Yeah.
It's good when we're doing
Return
bits and Ben goes, hold on. That's when you know good stuff's coming. Number 6 is Cloud Atlas. We've covered. Number 7 is Hotel.
We've done this box office game three times.
No, because Cloud Atlas isn't new that week. I'm saying Ralph and Flight are both new.
Got it.
Number 6 is Cloud Atlas. Number 7 is Hotel Transylvania.
There we go.
Number 8 is Paranormal Activity 4, the one with the Xbox.
Best one? No, 3 is the best one. Yeah. Right.
Number 9
is the Connect.
4 is not the best
4 is
one.
not
It's
the
maybe
best
the
one.
worst one.
Yeah.
Number 9 is Here Comes the Boom.
Of course.
There it went.
What if we remade Warrior 1 year later
with Kevin James? Yeah. And number 10 is the absolutely indefensible Silent Hill Revelation.
Sure. Now, David,
3D.
Would you do me a kindness? Would you just for my own joy, remind me what the numbers were on Ralph and Flight opening weekend?
Ralph was $49 million and Flight was 24.9.
Yeah, I remember feeling that the Ralph opening was lower than I expected.
But then it had
legged it out and had a long tail.
So this was November 2nd?
November 2nd.
They couldn't even give Vamps a real Halloween.
It's close.
You know what?
You know?
Caroline, you're right.
But maybe a week before would have been kinder.
Theater, at least put it out before Halloween instead of 2 days
Let us see it on Halloween.
That is rude.
We have done the week before's box office, because it is Cloud Atlas's first week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
It could have been Vamps.
It could have been Vamps. I hope people watch this movie. I hope if you thought this is one you could skip and just listen to the episode.
Check it out.
I will say at the time we're recording this, it is on all of America's most free streaming services. It is on Tubi. It is on Pluto. It is on Fubo. It's on all of them.
This thing is Tubi.
You can watch it on Plex with ads. It's everywhere.
Please do.
Yeah.
Oh,
but I think it's quite a good film.
Next up on our podcast is the Coen Brothers, so it's not a surprise.
No big surprise. I keep asking people, like, are being asked by people, what spoilers, but like, what's the rest of the year? And I remind them,
Coen Brothers.
The Coens won and they made 20 movies.
A lot of their movies are going to be covered.
Congratulations. That's the rest of the year, along with new release films. Oh, and David's wearing his congratulations shirt. Caroline, thank you so much for coming back.
Thank you so much for
Far
having
too
me.
long. We'll have you on again sooner.
Hey.
Yeah, you want to do Blood Simple? Just come back next week.
Yeah, you want to come back
going?
next week?
Just keep this going. Keep this part going.
Anything you want to plug?
Not really. I hope I have more stuff to plug by the time this comes out.
Well,
I just want to issue a quick apology for anyone who was at a 2016 show at Littlefield.
Okay.
That had 12 of us, including Mother of Blank Easy, Emily Yoshida, taking a track for each Carly Rae Jepsen song on the hit album Emotion.
Great song. Great album.
Which featured me. I had taken the song Warm Blood, and I decided to give a little PowerPoint presentation on lesbian vampires. I did get very nervous and too drunk, and I can't imagine that was good. Also, I did take that song away from the very wonderful, award-winning National Treasure writer, Hanifa Durakib, who wanted Warm Blood. And whenever he tells the story about that night, he talks about how he didn't get warm blood and he wanted it.
What did he get?
I don't remember the song. Oh, maybe it was I Really Like You. And he put up, and the reason why he talks about this is because he put up a screen that just said, tell someone you love them tonight. And he just talked as he can and just gave a wonderful, moving, meaningful speech about telling people you love them. And
That's nice.
People talk about it all the time and reference it. And I
stop complaining then. He got great one.
But he always talks about how he didn't get warm blood, and that's because it was me talking about lesbian vampires. And I thought this would be a great opportunity.
A great forum.
To apologize for that, because I do feel like there are some people listening who probably went to that. Emily did the LA hallucination song because she is an LA baby.
I cannot think of another example of asking someone if they have anything they want to plug, and instead they offer an apology for a thing that happened 9 years ago.
Yeah.
You remember, I assume. No offense to that.
I sure. I mean, I don't.
Do you
So why
still
should they?
have any of those PowerPoint slides?
I'm sure I do. I think it's probably online somewhere. I have a shirt that I got from it. But anyway,
send them to
I just
us.
felt like, in honor of Vamps.
You're the best. We owe you big time.
Yep.
For
Love you,
your, David
He's
is
gone.
just fucking
And he's off.
dropping a celebratory deuce to end the episode.
And disrespectful to Amy Heckerling, but
I agree. We gave him air conditioning and Sour Patch Kids. We let him go hog wild this episode, and this is how he repays us.
God, those Sour Patch Kids hit.
yeah, I'm saying this
They
is, I
often
had
do.
them for a reason. This is how I've
often
managed
do.
to do it.
I'm gonna have to go get a bag for myself.
Lemonade Sour Patch
Yeah.
Kids. They have apple flavors in the fall. Look them up.
Never tried.
The only time I've ever ordered snacks off Amazon. Specialty Sour Patch Kids. Get into them.
Okay.
Not sponsored.
That's
by.
a good plug.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here.
You're so welcome. It's such a pleasure.
Thank you all for listening. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe, and tune in next week for Blood Simple, the start of the Coen brothers' filmographies. And as always, canonically, and he's not allowed to say anything against this because he waived that right, David is currently taking the world's sloppiest shit. That's how he ended the episode. And if he disagrees, then here's his chance to offer a rebuttal.
Blank Check with Griffin and David is hosted by Griffin Newman and David Sims. Our executive producer is me, Ben Hostley. Our creative producer is Marie Barty Salinas. And our associate producer is AJ McKeon. This show is mixed and edited by AJ McKeon and Alan Smithy. Research by JJ Birch. Our theme song is by Lane Montgomery and the Great American Novel, with additional music by Alex Mitchell. Artwork by Joe Bowen, Ollie Moss, and Pat Reynolds. Our production assistant is Minnick. Special thanks to David Cho, Jordan Fish, and Nate Patterson for their production help. Head over to blankcheckpod.com for links to all of the real nerdy shit. Join our Patreon, Blank Check Special Features, for exclusive franchise commentaries and bonus episodes. Follow us on social at Blank Check Pod. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter, Checkbook, on Substack. This podcast is created and produced by Blank Check Productions.